the son-in-law of the female CEO. Aunt Shu, don't be like this, I'm a gentleman. Chen Zhong, don't I know your little tricks? When did you not glance at me when I came? Inside the luxurious villa, a charming woman twisted her waist and blocked him in the room. Looking at you twice doesn't mean anything. This is definitely a misunderstanding. It's not good for my family to know. Chen Zhong was like a trembling lamb. Meifeng is my mother-in-law's poker friend and often comes to play at home. Today, my mother-in-law was not at home, so I stayed and waited. Who would have thought that she would actually want to do something bad? She was wearing a hip skirt, her slender snow legs were still shining, and her upper body was a white suspender vest, which made her look more convex and curvy. Just like a charming fairy. Meifeng's oval face showed a charming look, and her peach eyes were very attractive. It doesn't matter. They can't see it anyway. My old man is in poor health. Just do me a favor. I'll give you 50,000 yuan a month and you'll be my little puppy. Chen Zhong had been secretly expressed his feelings to her many times. Most people would have compromised long ago. But he is a man who is loyal to love. It would be too unfair to his wife to do this. If you don't say anything, I'll take it as your consent. Let's get started. Meifeng was about to step forward. No. After Chen Zhong dodged, he suddenly found a camera behind her, which he had never seen before. Meifeng said regardless, what are you waiting for? I've been coveting your strong abdominal muscles for a long time. Don't. Chen Zhong protected his body and tried to roll aside. Meifeng chased him and saw that he didn't fall for it, so she could only shout, come on. Chen Zhong is being a hooligan. Fuck, Aunt Shu can't be like this. Chen Zhong knew there was a conspiracy. Bang. The door was pushed open. Two stunning beauties, one big and one small, came in from outside, one mature and plump, the other cold and delicate. Well, Chen Zhong, you have grown up. You dare to have evil thoughts even about my friends. You are so bold. I wonder what you have to say this time. I am so disappointed. Meifeng cried in her friend Huang Shufen's arms, Shufen, Chen Zhong wants to occupy me. I am too ashamed to see anyone. Woo woo woo. Chen Zhong was very angry and said, Aunt Shu, you are too much. You said you were uncomfortable in your stomach. I have a warm bag in my bedroom and want to give it to you. Are you setting me up like this? Meifeng completed her mission and stopped pretending. She put on her clothes and smiled and said, I'm sorry, Chen Zhong. I lost money playing cards, so I participated in this test. If you get divorced and have nowhere to go, come to Aunt Shu. I still like you very much. Bye. The young and beautiful woman took out the marriage certificate and said coldly, let's get a divorce tomorrow. There can't be any reason, right? Chen Zhong looked at his wife Su Ziying, who was down and out back then, but was favored by Su Xinghe, the head of the Su family, and became a live-in son-in-law after repeated invitations. In the more than 2 years since marriage, he has worked diligently for the mother and daughter, and was scolded from time to time. Until now, he has not even touched his wife's body, and has not even received a good face. It is not easy to get rid of her. He stood up, pulled out a camera and said, Wife, you want to use this camera as evidence, I'm afraid your grandfather won't pass it. The two women watched him walk out, surprised that they were discovered. When they turned on the video, nothing happened in it, and they looked at each other in surprise. Huang Shufen snorted coldly, I didn't expect to be discovered by this kid. His determination is quite strong. I have to change a better way. I can only introduce you to a partner to force him to give up. Su Ziying said helplessly, Mom, I have been married for more than 2 years, and you keep introducing me to partners. Many people are talking about it behind my back. Alas, Huang Shufen sighed, who doesn't know that your marriage to that loser is fake? You are just like a widow. You have never experienced the joy of being a woman. Look at the pimples on your face. It's not because of staying up late, but because you don't have a man. Mom. Su Ziying was embarrassed when she saw her mother talking about that, so she interrupted. Ahem. Huang Shufen also felt that she was talking about that, so she said, in short, you have such a good family background, and there are countless young talents pursuing you. How can this migrant worker be worthy of you? You must divorce him. Chen Zhong hummed a little tune and wiped the table with a rag. He was still very lucky in his heart. He almost fell into the trap of that goblin. But speaking of it, that waist and figure are indeed too good, but it is far worse than that of my wife. I walked a lot today, and my feet are all blistered. Wang Shufen looked at the useless person coldly and sat on the sofa. Su Ziying found the ointment and said, "Mom, let me rub it on you." How could Wang Shufen order her precious daughter around? She said coldly, "You've been tired at the company all day, let this servant do it." Chen Zhong was very upset, always treating him in a way that was not his fault. He squeezed out some ointment, spread it evenly on his hands, and then wiped his mother-in-law's feet. In fact, he was the second young master of the Chen family, one of the 5 major families in Beijing. Because his mother died of heavy bleeding when she gave birth to him, the family believed that he was an ominous person, and he was treated coldly from childhood to adulthood. When he was 18 years old, a cousin led him into the boudoir, and was finally wrongly accused of having bad intentions and was driven out of the family with sticks. When he arrived in Jiangcheng, he had been doing low-level work. By chance, he met the head of the Su family, who was known as a golden scale that was not a pond, and married into the 10th largest family in Jiangcheng. It is undeniable that Chen Zhong had feelings for this family that accommodated him because he lacked love since childhood. "How hard did you use?" Wang Shufen grinned and said, "You rubbed all the blisters on my feet." "Sorry, I didn't mean it." Chen Zhong was embarrassed. "Although my mother-in-law is in her 40s, she doesn't have wrinkles and white hair like ordinary women. She does all kinds of maintenance every day to keep in shape, and her skin is smooth and elastic. People will not doubt that she is only in her 30s. Hurry up and warm the bed." Su Ziying was going to sleep. It was winter, and snowflakes were still falling outside. Although the villa they lived in had floor heating, Su Ziying was born with a cold body and couldn't stand the cold. "I'll go now." Chen Zhong was finally relieved, and hurried to their room and lay down in his wife's quilt. "You look so stupid." Wang Shufen was very angry and looked down on this son-in-law. She turned and said, "Daughter, I still think you should have a relationship. Is the 4th young master of the Sun family who I took you to see excellent?" Su Ziying was silent for a moment and said, "Let's wait. My grandfather is not in good health. If I force a divorce and cause trouble to him, I will feel guilty. Besides, our status in the family is very low and we need his support." Wang Shufen also realized this and stopped persuading them. She planned to find an opportunity for them to get along. Chen Zhong's happiest thing every day is to warm the bed. Smelling the fragrance and imagining Su Ziying sleeping in the quilt he warmed, he felt a sense of happiness. Of course, it would be even better if he could sleep in it with her, but this would only appear in dreams. Since he moved in, he has been sleeping on the stiff floor. Every time he sees her graceful figure, he can't suppress certain thoughts. Maybe he was stimulated today and decided not to endure it anymore. He must do it with her. Chapter 2, I don't want to sleep on the floor today. Chen Chong thought that using a gentle approach probably wouldn't earn him approval, so he decided to be a little more rough. Perhaps the woman might actually like it. There's a saying, there are 2 ways to win a woman's approval. One is to fulfill her wishes, and the other is to satisfy her desires. He didn't believe that after 2 years, his wife would have no desires. While he was lost in thought, suddenly his phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, and he answered instinctively. "Is this the 2nd young master?" A surprised voice came from the other end. Chen Chong's heart suddenly skipped a beat, followed by a shudder. On the line was Chen Daizhu, the chief steward of the Chen family. He coldly replied, "What 2nd young master? You've dialed the wrong number." After hanging up, Chen Chong's mind was in turmoil. For all these years, he thought they had forgotten about him. The phone rang again. Chen Chong answered, suppressing his anger. "What do you want? Are you trying to drive me to death?" No, Chen Daizhu said urgently, "2nd young master, what happened before was all a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Chen Chong sneered. "I've been targeted by the Chen family since I was a child. I was nearly beaten to death. What a misunderstanding." Sighing, Chen Daizhu continued, "2nd young master, I know you harbor a lot of resentment, but the family has encountered a crisis, and we need you to stabilize things. If not, the family might split apart." Chen Chong was taken aback. The Chen family was one of the top families in the country, with assets in the trillions. To say it was an economic empire was not an exaggeration. His father, Chen Shanhai, had extraordinary leadership ability who would dare divide the family. Seeing that Chen Zhong had replied, Chen Zhu continued, the eldest young master was injured by a mysterious force, and after hospital examinations, it was found that he can no longer have children. Chen Zhong was surprised. His half-brother, who had often humiliated him, was now in this predicament. He laughed coldly. He was so arrogant, and the old man spoiled him without discipline. It's no surprise that something like this happened. How does his injury have anything to do with me? The eldest young master has no children and can't carry on the family line, so we need you, second young master, to be the heir, Chen Zhu said. Chen Zhong was stunned for a moment, then nonchalantly replied, so, if he is fine, you'll still forget about me and only come looking for me when you need me. Do you think I'm a dog? Sorry, but I'm not interested. At a large courtyard in the capital, Chen Zhu said, Master, the second young master's phone is off. But I believe he is a reasonable person. I'll go to Jiangcheng tomorrow and convince him. An old man lay weakly on a hospital bed. Despite his frailty, he exuded a commanding presence. After hearing the report, he nodded silently. Inside the Chen family's mansion, Chen Zhong was about to head to bed when Su Ziying entered the room. What are you yelling about? My mother is already asleep, don't disturb her, she said as she walked in. Hurry and get down. Oh. Chen Zhong quickly got off the bed, but suddenly remembered that he had something serious to take care of. When Su Ziying finished showering, her skin glowed a delicate red, and her black short-sleeved nightgown accentuated her curves. Her long, slender legs looked like lotus stems, irresistible to anyone who glanced at them. I don't want to sleep on the floor today, she said with a frown. Su Ziying looked at him in surprise. If you're not sleeping on the floor, where will you sleep? On the street. Chen Zhong scanned her up and down and said, Tonight, I want to do something interesting with you. You know what I mean. Su Ziying sneered. What a fantasy. I think you've been muddled by Aunt Shu. Chen Zhong grabbed her arm impulsively. I've been muddled. Do you know how I've lived these past 2 years? Do you know how frustrated I've been? This has nothing to do with me. I warn you, don't do anything rash. Su Ziying's eyes showed panic, clearly not used to seeing him act this way. Chen Zhong's chest heaved. We're married. It's a natural responsibility to fulfill our duties. Don't you think I'm handsome? Don't you think my body is attractive? Why do you have to keep holding back? You're shameless. Su Ziying tried to break free, but was suddenly thrown onto the bed. She quickly curled up in the blankets, using a clothes hanger to shield herself, and said fearfully, Don't come over here. You can find someone else. I love you, wife. Your cold violence is illegal. I'm saving you. Chen Zhong had always respected her, hoping to win her approval. But after all this time, he thought it was impossible. Just as he was about to make another move, he saw her tremble violently, her cold-induced condition flaring up. Immediately, his desire vanished. Wife, are you all right? Hurry and warm up, he said in concern. Su Ziying wrapped herself in the blanket, slowly calming down. Forget what happened tonight. Next time, just leave. Chen Zhong nodded, feeling guilty for having scared her earlier. Seeing her health worsening, he decided to use his hidden medical skills, something he kept secret for many years, to treat her. The next morning, after making breakfast, Chen Zhong also prepared some food for the family dog, Wen Cai. Honestly, that dog was treated better than he was. At the table, mother and daughter were sitting comfortably, enjoying their meal. However, Su Ziying seemed displeased as she threw the fatty meat into his bowl. Chen Zhong ate happily, even using Su Ziying's chopsticks. It felt like a form of indirect kiss. Sadly, he wasn't allowed at the dining table and had to squat at the side. On the bright side, he could enjoy the view of her beautiful, swaying legs. However, Su Ziying seemed upset. Concerned she might mention last night, he cautiously asked, Wife, I've noticed you've been frowning lately. Has something happened? Let your husband give you some advice. I'm thinking about how to kick you out of the Su family, Su Ziying said coldly. Su Ziying was indeed troubled. There was a class reunion today, and it was required to bring a partner. How could Chen Zhong, this good for nothing, be presentable? After breakfast, she changed into a small, open-collared suit that accentuated her figure, mature, capable, and elegant. But she quickly returned home and hurriedly said, Chen Zhong, hurry up and take me to the company. Got it. Chen Zhong quickly washed the dishes. It was the first time he was sending his wife off, so he wheeled his bike out. The snow from yesterday had caused traffic chaos, and a car accident had left the roads completely paralyzed. He had purchased this second-hand 125 cubic centimeters motorcycle for 500 yuan when he worked as a delivery man in Jiangcheng. Despite being a model from the 1990s, it had been heavily modified over the years. Its performance rivaled American motorcycles. Su Ziying was reluctant to ride it, often seeing him repair the bike. With various parts sticking out, it looked like a worker's bike, embarrassing to even ride. Go faster. I have an important client to meet. If you delay me, I won't forgive you. Su Ziying demanded. Don't worry, wife. I'll make you feel the speed of a jet. Chen Zhong revved the engine. Vroom vroom. A cloud of black smoke poured out of the exhaust pipe. The bike shot forward quickly, causing Su Ziying to lean against Chen Zhong. Chen Zhong's body trembled, excited by the close contact. He regretted not wearing thinner clothes. The loud roar of the engine, the black smoke, and the ugly bike combined with the beautiful woman made people turn their heads. Su Ziying immediately regretted it. She felt embarrassed, wishing she could disappear. As they neared the company, she asked him to stop, not wanting the company employees to see her riding on such a shabby bike, which would damage her image as the CEO. Suddenly, a Porsche drove up, and the window slowly rolled down. A handsome man leaned out and said, Ying Ying, in this cold weather, how can you walk outside? Get in the car and warm up. Chapter 3, Preconditions for the Heir. Ying Ying? That name sounds so familiar. Chen Zhong felt a sense of crisis, afraid that Su Ziying might agree, so he quickly answered for her, it's just a 10-minute walk, and getting in and out of the car is troublesome. You'd better walk. The handsome man paused for a moment, then smiled mockingly, you're the live-in son-in-law? I have a question for you. I refuse to answer. Chen Zhong immediately knew the question was going to be a mockery. The handsome man was surprised that Chen Zhong didn't take the bait. He sneered, I can't believe you have arms and legs, yet you spend your days at home eating and drinking for free, doing nothing. You're not much better than trash. Ying Ying, sorry, but I really feel sorry for you. You can't even afford a car to drive her to work. Nearly 3 years ago, one of the foremost beautiful women in Jiangcheng, Su Ziying from one of the 10 major families, married a man of low status, which caused countless young men who were pursuing her to be heartbroken, confused, and furious. The handsome man was one of them. Su Ziying's face darkened, and she said, it's okay. She didn't want to mention him in front of others, and over the years, she'd heard similar remarks frequently. In fact, Chen Zhong was not bad, she had tried to accept him. However, the disparity in their social status had a significant impact. Chen Zhong also sneered, my motorcycle has great traction and isn't prone to accidents. Your car better not crash on this snowy road. Stop embarrassing me. Su Ziying couldn't tolerate him anymore and directly got into the Porsche. Drive. The driver was son Dasheng, the fourth son of the Sun family, whom her mother had introduced to her the previous night. Son Dasheng was very considerate. Let me help you with the seatbelt. He glanced outside smugly and was about to move to help her. Chen Zhong's anger flared, and he clenched his fists. He marched forward and grabbed son Dasheng by the collar. What's the matter? Do you want to fight? Son Dasheng could easily take him down. But he suddenly hesitated when met with a fierce glare, feeling as if he were facing a wild beast. Su Ziying immediately got out of the car. If she had stayed in, the two men would have certainly fought. Son Dasheng, I don't need you to take me anymore. I'll walk. All right, if you need anything, just call me. Son Dasheng's good deed was ruined, and he was quite angry. He then thought that relationships had to develop gradually and glared at that useless man. Chen Zhong watched the car leave and chuckled, wife, I knew you wouldn't really want to ride in his car. Su Ziying smiled coldly, I was worried you'd get beaten to death. The power behind him could crush you like an ant. Don't follow me. Is that so? I'm not that simple either. Chen Zhong wasn't bothered by the other man at all. Suddenly, he said, wait. Su Ziying thought he was just boasting and impatiently asked, what now? Chen Zhong rubbed his hands and said, you haven't given me today's meal money. Su Ziying threw 100 yuan into his hand without looking back and walked away, her slim waist swaying enticingly. At that moment, a business-type Aston Martin pulled up next to them. A head of an elderly man popped out of the window. It was Chen Daju, the family's steward. With tears in his eyes, he said, "Second young master, you've suffered all these years." Chen Zhong's expression turned cold. "What are you here for?" "I miss you, second young master," Chen Daju said, getting out of the car and attempting to hug him. Chen Zhong stepped back, sneering, "Miss me? You've been away from Beijing for 7 years and never even called me. The Chen family has turned into such a cesspool that everyone has become so fake." Sighing, Chen Daju said, "Second young master, it's because the Chen family is like a cesspool that I can't show my attitude. Otherwise, how could I stay there? How have I treated you when you were around?" Chen Zhong's expression softened slightly. Chen Daju had indeed looked out for him in private. "Old Chen, you don't have to say more. I'm not going to be the heir. The old man never saw me as his son, and now that he needs me, I want to give him what he wants. Second young master, sometimes things aren't as simple as you think. The old master has his reasons. Many times, his decisions are made out of necessity." Chen Daju's tone grew somber. In fact, the old master and the eldest son were ambushed together. He is also in the hospital now. If he can't survive, the Chen family will be thrown into chaos. Without an established heir, there will be a fight for power, and other families will be lurking to take advantage. Chen Zhong fell silent. The old man was 70 today, and he was born when his father was 45. Did he hate him? Furious beyond words. But when he heard the old man might not have much time left, his heart still trembled. Seeing that his emotional appeal had worked, Chen Daju hurriedly said, "Second young master, let us talk in the car." Chen Zhong nodded and got in. Chen Daju pulled out a few papers. "Look, this is the contract. Once you sign it, you'll be the heir, the future head of the Chen family, and the entire business empire will be under your control." Chen Zhong flipped through the contract quickly but suddenly paused, suspiciously asking, "Are there any preconditions?" Chen Daju hadn't expected Chen Zhong to flip through the papers so fast and still notice. He awkwardly explained, "The Qi family is also a top-tier family. A marriage alliance with them will help deter any internal conspirators in the family and stop other families from attempting to seize control. We also learned that your relationship with Su Ziying is not great. Their family's assets are under 100 billion. How could they be worthy of you? And you're a live-in son-in-law, which also makes the Chen family. Har har har, so the Chen family loses face, does it?" Chen Zhong ripped up the contract in anger. "That old man isn't he injured? He is just trying to use me to fulfill his own goals. Does he really think I'm a dog that he can call when needed and discard at will?" After getting out of the car, he turned and said, "I love Su Ziying, whether she loves me or not. My identity has nothing to do with you." Chen Daju slowly gathered the torn contract and said nothing for a while. 2 men dressed in suits were seated in front. One of them called out, "Steward, we." Chen Daju pondered for a moment and said, "The second young master has genuine feelings for Miss Su. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said that. Let us wait a little longer. Maybe his attitude will change. That guy driving the Porsche can be taught a lesson." The man in the black suit nodded. At the market, Chen Zhong parked his motorcycle and wandered through the stalls. He didn't always pick the freshest vegetables. Some slightly less fresh ones had the same nutritional value but were cheaper. Since he came here often, the vendors all knew him and were aware that he was a live-in son-in-law of the Su family, living off her. They would mock him verbally, but in their hearts, they envied him greatly. After all, he was quite handsome. Chen Zhong was used to the ridicule and calmly bought his vegetables, asking, "How much for the cucumbers?" 2 yuan per jin, the female vendor replied. Chen Zhong shook his head, knowing she was charging too much. "They look a bit wilted, not fresh. How about 150 per jin? A live-in son-in-law from a big family, and you still haggle over vegetables." "If it were me, I'd just pay the extra," the female vendor teased. "You don't understand. The wealthier a person is, the more they care about the details. It's the poor people who like to show off their generosity," Chen Zhong retorted. The female vendor was caught off guard and stammered, "All right, I'll make you a deal." If you answer my question, I'll give you a 50-cent discount. Go ahead, Chen Zhong said. Did you and Miss Sue ever have a relationship? The female vendor asked. Though she was a woman, after years of running the stall, she had become quite crude and unashamed when it came to such matters. Nearby vendors also gathered around, as secrets of the rich families were a source of curiosity and intrigue for common folk. Chen Zhong paused for a moment, then answered shamelessly, "What do you think? How could I become a live-in son-in-law if I weren't strong in that area?" She fully enjoyed the pleasures of being a woman and became completely captivated by me. I always tell her not to focus too much on that and to focus on work. The vendors all looked at him in admiration. If he didn't have some abilities, how could he have entered the Su family? Chapter 4: Save a Life. After buying vegetables, Chen Zhong came to a Chinese medicine shop at the end of the market, intending to prepare some medicine for Su Ziying to treat her cold body. He grabbed a handful from each bag of medicinal herbs, put it under his nose, and then put it back. The owner of the medicine shop was a thin man in his 50s, known as Dr. Jin. He asked with a mocking tone, "You are a distinguished guest, and the son-in-law of the Su family knows about medicinal materials." "It's okay." Chen nodded. Dr. Jin was surprised and asked, "Since you know the ingredients of the herb, why did you pick it up and then put it down again? You seem to be hesitating about something. Your storage method for medicinal materials is incorrect. Some of their medicinal properties have changed, so they are not worth the price listed on the label," Chen Zhong pointed out. Dr. Jin immediately felt guilty and said, "If you can't afford the money, just say so. Don't talk nonsense, or you will be punished." Chen Zhong did not argue with him. He selected the herbs whose medicinal properties had not changed, weighed them and paid for them. Your medicine is prepared together to treat people with weak constitutions. Some of the herbs have yang energy, so they are for treating elderly men, right? Dr. Jin said confidently. Chen Zhong laughed, "It's for treating my wife. I have a general understanding of this so-called Dr. Jin. He probably only treats diseases based on books. Such a person can easily harm others." Because there were other people in the pharmacy, seeing that the son-in-law did not respond to his words, Dr. Jin sneered. "If you are not lying, your way of marrying will cause problems for your wife, so why not bring her to me?" "That's not necessary." Chen Zhong refused and was about to leave. A middle-aged beautiful woman wearing black pantyhose rushed in holding a naked child, crying in panic. Dr. Jin, my son fell into the water. Please think of a way to save him. I will agree to whatever you ask." The child was about 6 or 7 years old, with his eyes closed, his face bluish, and his limbs showing signs of struggle. Judging from his vital parts, he had been professionally rescued, but to no avail. Dr. Jin first took his pulse and then rolled his eyelids, all doing useless things. Finally, he said, "It has lost its vital signs. The situation is very critical. The only way is to use the secret method, but the medicinal materials are very expensive." The beautiful middle-aged woman said with hope, "Dr. Jin, as long as you can cure me, this is a card with 200,000 yuan. If it is not enough, you can add more. I will boil water in a wooden barrel and put in a strong medicine to stimulate your child's blood." After Dr. Jin finished speaking, he was about to take the bank card. He hooked his hand in the woman's hand, and a greedy look flashed across his face. "Wait, your method has no effect at all. You delayed the opportunity to save people for money. Do you still have medical ethics and conscience?" Chen Zhong stopped him. Dr. Jin sighed and said, "At this critical moment, every minute of delay will increase the risk." When the middle-aged beautiful woman heard this, she asked frantically, "What are you doing? Who are you? Get out of the way now. Do you believe that I will make it impossible for you to survive in Jiangcheng?" said a middle-aged man who looked like the child's father. Such a big noise attracted a lot of people to watch. After learning what happened, they all felt that this son-in-law was showing off his skills in front of an expert and had a problem with his brain. Chen Zhong did not move and continued, "Dr. Jin overlooked a problem. It takes you more than 15 minutes to boil water. How can you delay the time during this period? It only takes me 1 minute to wake up the child. Har har har, 1 minute. If you save him, I'll give you another 100,000 yuan. If you can't save him, you give me 100,000 yuan, how about that?" asked Dr. Jin. Chen Zhong laughed and said, "I don't want your 100,000 yuan. I just want to smash your signboard to prevent you from harming people again." Dr. Jin said fiercely, "Okay, if you can't pay, don't blame me for taking action." Since Chen Zhong was not welcomed in the Chen family, he was often alone. He once saved an injured old man by accident. The old man was simply amazing. He taught him a lot of knowledge and skills, and left just before anything happened to him. This time he used the medical skills taught by the old man. He put his fingers under the child's neck and put his ear close to listen. He took out a silver needle from the needle bag, pierced it into his chest, and twisted it back and forth with his fingertips. "I was at the riverside just now. The ambulance came, but there was no hope for treatment, so I was transferred here. It's unknown whether the child can survive, and 1 minute is simply unbelievable. No matter what, he is definitely going to lose to Dr. Jin." The crowd around him confirmed that saving the child was a pipe dream. 1 minute is almost up. Dr. Jin reminded loudly. Chen Zhong turned a deaf ear to him, sat the child up, and patted his chest. Puff. The child seemed to react subconsciously and spit out some water. Chen Zhong clapped twice more. Wow. Wow. The child gushed out 2 mouthfuls of water, then opened his eyes. Seeing everyone looking at him, he burst into tears. "Mom, I just fell into the river. You really saved the person. This is incredible." Everyone was surprised. "Miracle doctor, thank you for saving my child from the brink of death." The beautiful middle-aged woman immediately rushed over. Chen Zhong was startled. She was wearing a tank top, and her good figure was surging with her movements. He said quickly, "I think he was still alive, so we could save him. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the ability to ask the king of hell for his life." The middle-aged man apologized. "I'm sorry, my tone was not good just now. I hope you can forgive me, doctor. Here is 200,000 yuan, please accept it." Chen Zhong noticed that they were dressed in ordinary clothes, so he pushed it back. "It's not easy for you to make money, so you should keep it. My original intention was not for money." He then said, "The child's chest cavity is blocked. Using hot water to stimulate the blood will only speed up the suffocation. He is not saving people. Our Chinese medicine is a 1,000-year heritage of China. Few people study it. If someone who only has superficial knowledge dares to open a clinic for treatment, isn't that harming people?" Just from the son-in-law's story, everyone understood that Dr. Jin's treatment principles were not working. Dr. Jin looked unhappy. How could he continue to do business if he lost his reputation? He argued, "Everyone has different treatment methods. Don't talk nonsense, or I will be rude to you." Chen Zhong smiled and said, "You still want to cure diseases and save lives in the future? Your ancestral brand will be destroyed in your hands today." When people saw him trying to smash the sign, no one came to help him. This kind of thing is offensive. The sign is suspended more than 3 meters in the air and cannot be reached without help. If you can get there, you're very capable. Dr. Jin taunted. It's not difficult. Chen Zhong picked up a brick and smashed it on the corner of the sign. Then the sign tilted down, and he kicked it hard, breaking it into 2 pieces. In fact, he could break it with just 1 kick in mid-air, but he was afraid of shocking everyone's hearts. You destroyed my ancestral medical practice." Dr. Jin's eyes were red and he rushed over to fight. Chapter 5 Prescription. Chen Zhong dodged and kicked Dr. Jin in the lower back. The latter lost control and fell into the fish pond, causing everyone to laugh. Chen Zhong sighed. It was this kind of people who fooled many people, and he was about to leave. The beautiful middle-aged woman chased out and said, "Divine doctor, you saved my son's life, and you also gave me a generous gift. Come to my house when you have time. Do you want to sit down or do it?" Chen Zhong looked at her charming appearance, confused. He should be very good at building relationships with others and not like an ordinary person. The middle-aged man came over and said, "The child was declared dead, but he was saved. This young man is not simple. Yes, I still feel a sense of loss. My appearance seems to be unattractive in front of him," said the beautiful middle-aged woman. Chen Zhong returned home and started making medicine. Dr. Jin was right about one thing: the herbs he selected do increase yang energy, but it is just a matter of balancing yin and yang. It is divided into 2 steps. The first is mixing and boiling, which takes nearly 2 hours. The second is to let it cool and then add medicinal materials to boil again. In fact, you can take it after completing the first step, but it will cause hotness all over the body and it will be difficult to defecate. It would take a while for the snow to cool down, so Chen Zhong took out the iron pick and went outside to clear the snow. This is a villa area where rich people live. People passing by looked at her with contempt, wondering why a person of low status could be worthy of Miss Su. At this time, a beautiful girl came over and said, "You, sweep the snow at my door for me." Chen Zhong glanced at Du Lily, who lived diagonally across from him and was the secret lover of a rich man. She was wearing a deep V-neck, had a very proud figure, and pink stockings, and she didn't feel cold at all outdoors. I ignored him and was chatting with the security guard. There was a little female star living in the community, and it was said that strange noises were heard late at night. "Are you deaf? Can't you hear me?" The beautiful girl stared at him. Chen Zhong stopped and said, leaning on the iron rod, "You don't seem to understand my identity. Even if I'm a property staff in the community, I'm not under your command. Why are you so arrogant?" Du Lily was a little angry and said sarcastically, "I still want to know your identity. Aren't you just a son-in-law? You still look down on me." I just laughed. "We are all gigolos. I am a legitimate wife after all, and you are just a mistress who cannot be in the spotlight. Yet you try to act pretentiously in front of me." Chen Zhong raised his head and said in a superior manner. Du Lily said angrily, "You are such a coward as a man, compared to me, a woman. You deserve a slap in the face." Before her slap landed, Chen Zhong grabbed it, glanced down, and then said coldly, "You did something shameful, and you can't tell me about it. To me, men and women are the same. If you lay a hand on me, I don't mind slapping you in the face." You. Du Lily was scared, thinking that this son-in-law was lowly and had no gentlemanly manners at all. Security guard Li Jian watched her leave angrily and spat, "What a thing! She really thinks she's such a big shot. She always bosses us around. I can't stand her for a long time." Chen Zhong smiled and said, "You better resist the urge and don't lose your job because of this. As long as it's not too embarrassing, just obey. I'll find a chance to embarrass her." Li Jian suddenly said, "Chen Zhong, if you want to deal with Du Lily, I have a way." "Oh? What method?" Chen Zhong was curious. Li Jian glanced at the people next to him and whispered, "Let me tell you, Du Lily secretly keeps a gigolo. She is very brave." "How did you know that?" Chen Zhong was surprised. "One night, the heating in Du Lily's house was not hot. I was on duty, so I went over to take a look. Unexpectedly, I saw a man in her half-open bedroom door." "I'm sure that's not Boss Li," said Li Jian. Chen Zhong had met Boss Li, who must be around 60 years old. He certainly couldn't satisfy Du Lily in some aspects. I wonder what the scene will be like when he finds out. Boss Li's business involves underground forces. If she gets angry, she will regret what she has done. Huang Shufen happened to come back, and seeing Chen Zhong's playful face, she shouted, "Get back here. You can't embarrass me enough." Chen Zhongyi went back with his head down, cut the vegetables, and waited for everyone to come back before starting to cook. Huang Shufen took off her socks. Even though the ointment was effective and had soaked them in, it still hurt when she walked. She didn't wear her favorite high heels today. She changed into slippers and walked into the living room, still cursing Chen Zhong, and noticed a pot of soup on the cabinet outside the kitchen. "I wanted to get angry and put it in a mess, but it smelled very good, so I picked up the spoon and took a few sips. My slightly cold body instantly became warm." Her eyes lit up and she drank 2 more spoonfuls. She had to admit that this loser was a good cook. Huang Shufen sighed and was busy with the family today. Although the family banquet will start during the Chinese New Year, those scheming family members have already started preparing, so how could she fall behind? Her husband has long passed away, her son-in-law is a good-for-nothing, and no matter how strong she is always squeezed out. Huang Shufen suddenly felt a heat radiating from her body to her skin, and she gradually became upset. Was it because she was ridiculed in the family? Although it made her angry, she had gotten used to it over the years and didn't dwell on it. Huang Shufen took several big gulps of water, but the heat still did not subside. "Oh, that's the soup that warmed my body. What's going on?" Huang Shufen walked into the kitchen. Chen Zhong thought she was still blaming him, so he said, "Mother-in-law, are your feet feeling better? Should I apply some medicine or give you a massage later?" "No need. You cook first." Huang Shufen said coldly and returned to her bedroom. After Chen Zhong finished cooking, he called his mother-in-law out, and suddenly the phone rang. "Honey, how long will it take you to get back? My mother-in-law and I are waiting for you. We've made you some soup, and I'm sure it'll keep you warm. Don't eat at home. Come with me outside and pick me up at the company gate first." Su Ziying said. "What?" Chen Zhong thought he had heard it wrong. "If you don't understand, don't come," Su Ziying said impatiently. I'm coming right here, mother-in-law, I'm going out to eat with my wife." Chen Zhong ran out happily. "In more than 2 years of marriage, she has never taken me out to eat. He only showed up once at a clan banquet, and was scolded by her for saying the wrong thing. No matter what I say, I can't embarrass her this time." He rode his motorcycle at lightning speed and arrived at the entrance of perfect company. Su Ziying changed into a casual short down jacket, a miniskirt, flesh-colored tights and long boots. "Wife, I'm here." Chen Zhong was attracted and shook his head, showing a posture that he thought was handsome. Su Ziying frowned. She didn't expect him to ride the countryside motorcycle again. She kicked it and said, "I really regret calling you. Can't you give me some face?" Chen Zhong's beloved mount was kicked, and he said angrily, "Yes, I embarrassed you, why didn't you call that Porsche?" Su Ziying sneered, "If some Dasheng hadn't accidentally fallen into the ditch while driving, I wouldn't have called you." Chen Zhong was very angry when he saw that she was still thinking about the Porsche, but then he thought that the guy falling into the ditch must be God's punishment for him. This was also his chance. Chen Zhong asked, "Where are we going to eat?" Su Ziying said angrily, "I'm almost pissed off. Going to a class reunion. And you're dressed like a migrant worker, as if I've treated you unfairly. Just take a taxi." "So you are going to attend a class reunion?" "Honey, if you had told me earlier, I would definitely." Chen Zhong didn't finish his words because he didn't have money to buy clothes. Su Ziying didn't want to pay any attention to him anymore. It was just after get off work, and because it was snowing, the taxi was filled with passengers. Her classmates called several times to urge her to come back, and she could only say angrily, "Just take your country motorcycle." Chen Zhong is still very impressive. At the critical moment, he still has to rely on his mount, right? After getting in the car, we drove left and right in the snow towards our destination. Chapter 6, Dog Eyes Look Down on People. Why hasn't Su Ziying come yet? She's still acting like a school beauty and asking us to wait. Yang Pingping, don't forget that she is a member of the Su family. Just based on this point, who here can compare to her? There's nothing to brag about. I heard that she got a live-in son-in-law. He's just as good as trash. Compared to my boyfriend, there's a huge gap. Sitting on the sofa in the lobby on the first floor of Grand Capital Hotel were 7 or 8 young men and women, looking very successful in their careers. A student who was in charge of receiving guests suddenly said, "Look at that guy at the door. Is he our class monitor?" Those who attended the class reunion proved their presence with their actions and walked out of the revolving door one after another. "Class monitor, it's only been 2 years since graduation and you're already driving a Mercedes-Benz," a classmate said enviously. Another classmate flattered him, "The class monitor has performed outstandingly in school, so he will naturally excel in society." The monitor asked the security guard to drive the car to the parking space and said in a gentle manner, "It's been a long time since we last met, classmates. You have all become much calmer." A classmate sighed, "Yes, after leaving school, the knife of life is changing our edges and corners." The monitor smiled, guessing that he was not doing well, and asked, "Where is Su Ziying?" "She, humph." Yang Pingping said coldly, "Doesn't she just want to be the last to appear?" As he was speaking, a buzzing sound came from a distance. An old, ugly motorcycle stopped. Everyone first saw that the rider was a stranger, but then they were surprised by the person sitting on the back seat. The recognized campus beauty of Jiangcheng University is still as beautiful as ever, but now more mature and intellectual. "Campus Belle, you're finally here. This way of appearance is very unique. Where is your son-in-law who married into the family?" Yang Pingping asked with sarcasm. Chen Zhong raised his hand and said, "Hello, classmates. I am Su Ziying's husband." Some students who are not doing well feel inferior when they are with their better-off classmates, but after meeting Chen Zhong, they become more confident. A classmate teased, "I heard that you entered the Su family just for a bite to eat. And you don't do anything." Chen Zhong said seriously, "How can you say that? I am also a house husband and I have contributed a lot. Har har har, everyone was amused and exuded contempt. Su Ziying pinched Chen Zhong's waist. How could people be so different from each other? He couldn't tell that others were mocking him at all. She coughed and said in a goddess-like manner, "Sorry, classmates, there was a traffic jam on the road. I kept you waiting for a long time. We all just got here." Class monitor Jin Zi said eloquently, "Now that we're all here, let's not stand and talk. It's only been 2 years since we graduated, and my legs don't even want to walk anymore." A classmate laughed and said, "Monitor, you are the boss now, you are used to sitting in the office." Those classmates chatted enthusiastically, and they were like the moon surrounded by stars to the monitor and Su Ziying. Chen Zhong was blocked at the end, and if he wanted to intervene, he would be suspected of destroying the relationship between their classmates. People entered the elevator one after another and it showed that they were overweight. Su Ziying gestured, "Chen Zhong, why don't you wait outside for the next bus? Don't you think the bus is overcrowded? I just listened to you two chatting." Chen Zhong smiled and scratched his head. "Your husband looks good, but a little silly," commented a classmate. "Not bad, he behaves so obediently." "Don't have too high expectations of a son-in-law," said another person. Su Ziying didn't want Chen Zhong to follow her, for she was worried that her classmates would say something mocking to him when they saw him. She didn't expect that the same thing would happen even after she left. Chen Zhong waited silently for the other elevator to come down, then got on again and arrived at the floor they were going to. "But now I remember, I'm not sure which private room it was. Hello, may I ask which room did some young people of my age go to just now?" Chen Zhong asked. The waiter next to him looked him up and down. People who come to Jinju Hotel are usually rich people. This man was indeed dressed a little shabbily, and someone had already greeted him. He shook his head and said, "I don't know." Chen Zhong was puzzled. Did they press the wrong floor? He called Su Ziying's phone. It rang the first time, but it was turned off the second time. It seems that she doesn't want to bring him. The one she really wants to bring is the one driving the Porsche. She has a real husband, but she wants to bring a fake husband. Am I really that bad in her eyes? Chen Zhong stood outside the elevator with his head down, ready to go back. "Miracle doctor," someone next to him suddenly asked. Chen Zhong turned his head subconsciously. "It's you, miracle doctor. I'm so sorry. I was so busy taking care of my son that I didn't have time to ask for your contact information. I regret it so much. I must repay your kindness." The father of the rescued child held Chen Zhong's hand tightly. Chen Zhong smiled and said, "Isn't this what we met? If we are destined to meet, we will meet even if we are thousands of miles apart. If we are not destined to meet, we will not recognize each other even if we are face to face. You recognized me, which is also a favor to me." The child's father didn't expect him to be so noble, and said, "Then you have to let me show my appreciation. Which private room are you in? I'll pay for that table." Chen Zhong said embarrassedly, "The people who were with me came here first. I just came up and forgot to ask which room it was." "That's easy, just ask the waiter," said the child's father. "I just asked, and the waiter said he didn't know." Chen Zhong actually knew that he knew, but it was his scorn for the poor and love for the rich that was playing tricks on him. The child's father frowned and said, "The man with this gentleman went up to this floor, didn't you see it?" The waiter couldn't believe that this shabby-dressed man had such a big relationship, and said in panic, "Actually, I played a joke on this gentleman. They are in room 808. Are you kidding? Who the hell are you to make fun of my benefactor?" the child's father scolded. A private room next to it opened, and a young man in a suit and tie walked out and asked, "Station Master Hu, what happened?" Station Master Hu said, "This gentleman is the miracle doctor who saved my child that I just told you about. Your waiter here is so mean. He came here to eat and got separated from his friends." The waiter clearly saw it but pretended not to see it. The young man's eyes turned cold. Station Master Hu's name was Hu Fuqiang. He was the station master of the business station, managing markets at all levels. Hiring him was to avoid trouble. A blind waiter actually got him into trouble. "Don't do it anymore." The young man didn't say much. The salary at Jinju Hotel is relatively high in Jiangcheng. The waiter was reluctant to give up this job and begged, "General manager, please don't fire me. It was actually his colleague who showed the Mercedes-Benz key who asked me not to tell anyone. He gave me $100. Chen Zhong was surprised at the identity of the child's father, and was also shocked that the squad leader, who seemed like a modest gentleman, had such a dark heart. The young man said, "Your behavior is more serious. It will make our hotel lose its credibility and fairness. I will deduct your salary for this month and go pack up your things." The waiter was dumbfounded. If he had known this, he would not have said anything. For the sake of $100, he lost $4,000 and his job. Chapter 7. The gigolo is so bold that he even dares to hurt others. "Good doctor, come to my room and have a drink," Hu Fuqiang invited. Chen Zhong smiled and said, "Station Master Hu, I know your identity now. Don't refuse if you need anything in the future. Just call me Chen Zhong. My wife is with those bad classmates. I'm afraid she will get drunk. There are plenty of opportunities for us to sit together." "The miracle doctor is married?" "That's right, you are so outstanding, you must have been taken advantage of first," Hu Fuqiang joked. "Well, then, we have time. Su Ziying, your husband should be able to come up even if he has to climb the stairs, right? Didn't you see that he didn't dare to talk to us just now? He's probably too introverted to come. Did you not tell him the room number? That's why you couldn't find it for so long? Su Ziying, call and let him know." Su Ziying took out her phone and looked at it, and exclaimed in surprise, "It turned off automatically. It must be out of battery. I have a power bank. I'll give it to you," a classmate said generously. Seeing that he was about to be exposed, Chen Zhong pushed the door open and said, "Sorry, I just went to the toilet and kept you waiting for a long time." Everyone was speechless. Not to mention squatting in the toilet, some people were still eating. Jinzi asked in surprise, "Do you know the room number? How did you find it?" "Oh, I gave the waiter $10 to tell me, and he also said someone gave him $100 to keep it a secret. I don't think anyone would be so stupid to give him $100. Chen Zhong said. Jinzi didn't expect the waiter's price to be so low, luckily he didn't tell him. "Squad leader, you should be more discerning. Everyone is sitting in pairs. Wouldn't it be awkward for you to sit here?" Chen Zhong said, "Please make room. I need to sit with my wife." Jin Ziqiang stood up with a smile and said, "I'm chatting with my classmates about their recent situation. It seems more intimate to be close to them." Chen Zhong asked, "You are the initiator of this organization, and you asked everyone to bring their significant other. Where is your significant other? Is he still a single person?" I'm so sorry. I forgot to tell you that the weather suddenly dropped in temperature and my girlfriend is sick." Jin Zi said. "I see. I saw on the news these days that the flu is very serious. It seems that the class monitor has also been infected. Yet he still attended the class reunion despite his health condition. I admire him." Chen Zhong said respectfully. The person who was originally sitting next to Jinzi couldn't help but move to the side. Jin Zi hated this gigolo. He came here just for Su Ziying. I thought she was embarrassed to bring her partner, but I didn't expect her to come. I thought I could deal with this gigolo, but I didn't expect him to be so bold and put me in an awkward position. Yang Pingping had been thinking about showing off for a long time. When she saw that her limelight was stolen, she said, "We were just reminiscing about the past. Some people were glad to go to Jiangcheng University, while others regretted not going to a better university. I feel a little regretful." Su Ziying asked, "Jiangcheng is also a first-class university. Yang Pingping, which university do you regret not attending?" "Of course it's a university in the United States. I went to the United States on a business trip once, and I really felt the difference of the United States." "Can you guess what attracted me?" Yang Pingping asked, keeping the secret. A classmate guessed, high-quality hardware facilities. Better salary and benefits. Yang Pingping said with an intoxicated look, "Every time someone asks me, I always answer like this, fresh air." Everyone looked at each other. Yang Pingping smiled and continued, 2 years ago, when I stepped off the plane, I prepared 6 masks in total, but when I smelled the air in the United States for the first time, I put the mask away because the air was so sweet and had a strange luxury. I was completely shocked. To be honest, if you have the opportunity to go abroad, you must go and experience it. My boyfriend is American. He grew up breathing fresh air, which is why he is so outstanding and can be the president of a branch company in Dahua. Yang Pingping said admiringly. Chen Zhong curled his lips. It turned out that he was a genuine foreign slave. Yang Pingping noticed the disdainful expression of this gigolo and asked, "Mr. Chen seems unconvinced. I wonder which university you attended." Chen Zhong said frankly, "I never went to college. I didn't have the chance to study after graduating from high school." "That's a high school diploma. There's a reason why you're so mediocre. My boyfriend graduated from an Ivy League university in the United States and knows several foreign languages, so he has more opportunities. You can learn from him if you have time." Yang Pingping showed her kindness, with her neck tilted back like a giraffe, trying to show that she was superior. Although people did not like what she said, they still respected excellent people. Jin Zi followed up, "People should be more humble. Low education doesn't always mean they are incompetent or inferior. As long as they are willing to improve, they will always prove their worth." "That's absolutely right." Chen Zhong agreed while eating, completely unaware that he was talking about himself. Seeing that everyone was making fun of her again, Su Ziying couldn't help but scolded, "I'm really ashamed for you. Why are others so outstanding, but you are so incompetent?" Chen Zhong said vaguely, "I am actually quite good and I can speak several foreign languages, honey, you just didn't realize it." Although he was rejected by his family, he never fell behind in education. "Since I didn't have any companions, I could focus on studying and became proficient in 12 foreign languages." Su Ziying still didn't know which village Chen Zhong was from, and sarcastically said, "Don't embarrass yourself with your remote foreign language skills." She had seen him speak the village dialect to others, and his proficiency was so high that he must be a native of the countryside. She doesn't look down on rural people. Her family has been from the village for 2 generations, but is it wrong to say whatever you want in whatever occasion? "Hello Mr. Chen, my name is Kerry." The foreigner stood up politely and extended his hand. Chen Zhong also said politely, "Hello, Kerry, how are you?" "Fine, thank you, and you?" Kerry suddenly increased her strength. Chen Zhong sensed that he was up to no good, and said with a smile, "Why Rui, hello." Kerry managed to understand that it was a very good idea and increased his strength. Yang Pingping knew that Kerry was using his signature method again, which always made people in awe of him. It was great. Everyone shook their heads. In comparison, Chen Zhong's foreign language skills were extremely poor. Suddenly he realized that the two men did not let go. Seeing that Kerry was trying hard, he knew that Chen Zhong was being bullied, but he did not say anything. Seeing this, Su Ziying kicked Chen Zhong and told him to stop holding on. Chen Zhong turned around and found that his wife was concerned about him, so he increased his strength. At first, Kerry was wondering why the other party didn't react, as if he had no bones. Suddenly, he felt the pain of a dislocated bone and wanted to pull it out, but it was like it was stuck there and he couldn't get away at all. He couldn't bear it any longer and screamed, trying his best to fight back, but the other party withdrew his attack and he fell backwards. "Kerry, are you okay?" Yang Pingping turned and said angrily, "How dare you, a gigolo, to hurt an American?" Chapter 8, Unveiled. "I don't know what's going on here. Isn't it that the American has the upper hand? Why does he seem to be in pain? Although this live-in son-in-law is a bit mean, it seems that he doesn't have any destructive power, right?" Chen Zhong said, "I guess he has been in China for too long and can't breathe the fresh air of the United States, so he has a seizure." When everyone thought about it, this was entirely possible. Others didn't understand what was happening, but Kerry knew it clearly, the opponent's power was too strong. "This is the first time I've encountered such a powerful master in China, and I can't tell at all. It turns out that there are many people who know Kung Fu in this country, but they are too low-key." In order to avoid ruining his image, Kerry said shamelessly, "My leg cramped and I fell because I didn't stand properly." Su Ziying finally understood, otherwise Chen Zhong would be embarrassed, and said coldly, "Sit down." After the dishes came up one after another, Jin Zi handed over the menu and said, "Mr. Chen, everyone has ordered their dishes first. You should order one too. Don't leave anyone out. Don't be polite. It's my treat." A classmate named Wang Qianyong deliberately said, "We have already had enough dishes." As the son-in-law of the Su family, Mr. Chen must have seen a lot of big scenes. "How about ordering a bottle of red wine?" Su Ziying understood that this was embarrassing Chen Zhong, but she was a little displeased that he kept hitting her in the face. He had only been taken to a family banquet, and she sent him back home before he even had his meal. How would he know anything about red wine? I have seen him drink low-quality liquors such as Red Star Erguatu and Old Village Chief. That high-end red wine has nothing to do with it, so how can you recognize it? Well, what is the name of the most expensive wine here? Chen Zhong asked. The waiter said, we have a new bottle of red wine, but it's in a foreign language, and I don't know the price yet. The supervisor said it's the most expensive wine, and here's a picture. Chen Zhong took a look and said in surprise, then I'll take it. The waiter kindly asked, are you sure, sir? Do you know who treated us to this meal? Our squad leader drives a Mercedes-Benz, how could he not afford to pay? Chen Zhong was very angry on behalf of the squad leader. Although Jin Zi wanted to ask about the price, he couldn't ask because it was too embarrassing. He pretended to be relaxed and said, it's no big deal. Just take this bottle. The class monitor is the class monitor, a classmate praised. If I were you, I would definitely ask about the price. I heard that you opened a company and you have become a different person. I am not like a stingy clerk like me. Jin Zi was very pleased with the flattery and waved his hands proudly, saying, there are many things to worry about every day when running a company. It's not that easy. It might go bankrupt one day. It's not like your stable jobs. Soon the bottle of red wine was brought up. Mr. Chen, you said you know several foreign languages. Could you tell me what kind of wine it is? Wang Tianyong asked. Chen Zhong smiled but didn't answer. Instead, he asked, Carrie, what foreign languages do you know? Carrie said, Mexican, Chinese, French. Can you tell me what kind of wine this is? It should be in Russian, but I don't understand it. Carrie guessed based on his memory. If he was right, others would admire him, but if he was wrong, it didn't matter. Yang Pingping looked at Carrie with admiration and said, Carrie, I didn't know you knew Russian. You are always so low-key, just like the sea. I can never understand you enough. Carrie couldn't help but puff out his chest. There was no trace of being humble in his expression. It was as if he was trying to show off who was more awesome than him. Everyone was full of admiration. Wang Tianyong emphasized, Mr. Chen, don't change the subject. Did Carrie disappoint you? I am really disappointed, Chen Zhong said regretfully, uttering a few words in foreign language. Everyone looked at each other, and no one understood what he was saying, but the pronunciation sounded very much like French. Chen Zhong raised his eyebrows and said, Carrie, I'm greeting you in French, why don't you answer? Carrie was startled. She never expected that this guy, who was looked down upon by everyone, actually knew foreign languages. No one else understood anyway, so he said authoritatively, if you just swung your tongue a few times and thought you were speaking French, then everyone would know French. Jin Zi hit back at the right time, Mr. Chen, please don't embarrass our country in front of foreign friends. Wang Tianyong taught, there is a saying that goes, to know what you know and to know what you don't know is true knowledge. Yang Pingping snorted coldly, you look stupid if you pretend to know something you don't. Everyone who comes to the class reunion wants to show themselves. Even though some people are not doing well in their lives, they still have things to show off in certain aspects. They felt a sense of accomplishment by teasing Su Ziying's gigolo husband, but that guy was shameless and regarded himself as the protagonist. So they joined the ranks of criticizing and educating. Su Ziying didn't get angry at this time. She had French friends, and she knew what Chen Zhong said was probably not nonsense, so she didn't say anything. Chen Zhong said, since you guys say my French is just nonsense, can you let Carrie say a few real words? Yang Pingping mocked, you're really not going to give up until you get to the Yellow River. Carrie, say a few words in French to humiliate him. Carrie blushed and said, I am a noble person, why should I speak when others ask me to? Chen Zhong did not ask for more, but picked up the red wine and said, this is Snow Heatsiak Champagne, one of the 3 largest champagne brands in the world. The winery was founded in Reims in 1785. It has dazzling colors, a unique and elegant experience, and an endless aftertaste. It can also increase appetite, and has a good nourishing and weight loss effect. Women who drink it will feel like noble ladies. Everyone present forgot to doubt and just heard that it was one of the top 3 in the world and the time it was founded, and they thought it was definitely a good wine. Several women were even more excited. One of them picked it up and scanned the code with her mobile phone. It is indeed Snow White Champagne. Everyone then came to their senses and realized that the gigolo they had laughed at was actually not worth talking to. Chen Zhong sighed heavily and said, "Carrie, there is a saying in our country that if you act cool, you will be struck by lightning. Aren't you afraid of being struck to death by lightning if you act so cool? How can Miss Ping Ping, who loves the fresh air of the United States, accept this?" Everyone looked at Yang Pingping. They wanted to see her feel a little humiliated. Yang Pingping was embarrassed in front of her classmates and could not accept it. "Carrie, I regarded you as God, my spiritual heir, why did you lie to me?" Before Carrie came, he hinted at Yang Pingping's situation. Unexpectedly, this most overlooked gigolo actually exposed him. He shrugged with a bit of regret and said, "You are a rich woman. It doesn't cost money to be with you. I just coaxed you. Now that I have been exposed, I can only leave." Stop right there. Although Su Ziying was always targeted by Yang Pingping, she still cherished the friendship between classmates. She stretched out her hand and hit Ruekai in the face. "You lied to a woman who loves you deeply. Are you still a man? Bitch! You dare to hit me!" Carrie cursed and punched him. Although many of the Chinese here were similar in build to him, none of them were as strong as him. Chapter 9. I was really screwed by this gigolo. Su Ziying relied on the fact that she was a woman and thought that the other party would not dare to fight back. She was also used to slapping Chen Zhong in the face and thought that everyone would obey her. Of course, when he saw the sandbag-sized fist about to fall on his face, he suddenly stopped. She turned around and saw Chen Zhong reaching out and grabbing Carrie's fist. "How dare you call my wife a booger?" Chen Zhong seemed very angry. He picked up the cutlery and hit Carrie on the head several times in a row. Carrie forgot about this gigolo who knew kung fu and tried to pull her hand away, but she couldn't. He wanted to explain that he hadn't just said booger, but that sentence sounded even worse in English. His head was foggy and he shouted in fear, "Brother, I was wrong, please don't hit me." Chen Zhong snorted coldly, "In our country, just put away your arrogance, keep your tail between your legs and be an honest person. There are some people who worship foreign things and fawn on you, but most of them will not take you seriously." Everyone present felt ashamed after hearing this. They had received higher education, but they were not as strong-willed as this person with low education. "Su Ziying, and you, a gigolo, who told you to hit my boyfriend?" Yang Pingping rushed over and said angrily. Su Ziying was surprised and said, "Pingping, he cheated on you, I am venting my anger for you." "Are you venting your anger for me? I think you are jealous because my boyfriend is American." Yang Pingping sneered. No one could have imagined that Yang Pingping could not distinguish right from wrong to such an extent, which showed how deeply she had been poisoned. Chen Zhong didn't want to say anything to such a person, he just reminded him, "Your fresh air has slipped away, why don't you hurry and catch it?" Yang Pingping then realized that Carrie had left, and hurriedly chased after her. "Oh, no, Carrie, wait a minute. Don't leave, I won't blame you, how can I breathe without you?" Su Ziying couldn't accept it and said, "How could she become like this? She can't tell good from bad anymore. Some people always think that the moon is rounder in foreign countries, and they feel superior to others when they go abroad, and they forget their own origins," said Chen Zhong. Su Ziying glanced at him. If it weren't for him, she would definitely be beaten today. For some people, the more you hit, scold, and ridicule them, the more they will respect you, just like these classmates no longer looked down on Chen Zhong. Wang Tianyong also complained in a friendly way, "Mr. Chen is a hidden talent. He can speak French." Chen Zhong chuckled and said, "I like to watch TV while doing housework at home, and I happened to learn that sentence. Actually, I don't understand what it means." Everyone was speechless. Is this the image they just rose up? A classmate smiled and said, "Mr. Chen is too modest. He learned a sentence in French. But the French is not easy to recognize, right? I really don't recognize this French word, but I feel familiar with the trademark and remember seeing it on TV shopping. It represents a batch of wine called Ship of Silence, with about 2,000 bottles. In 1916, the ship was sunk on their way to Russia for the royal family to drink. It was not until 1998 that it was salvaged." Chen Zhong said. Everyone continued to admit that he was just a gigolo. He loved to show off so much, so how could he hide himself if he knew French? They were too obsessed with the saying that the masters were among the common people. Su Ziying pinched him hard with her hand. Chen Zhong took a breath and said, "Wife, why are you pinching me? I see you're a little sleepy, so I'll cheer you up, Su Ziying said, annoyed. He made his classmates look up to him, which saved her face, but she couldn't stand his shamelessness. Thanks to Chen Zhong's sharp performance and Yang Pingping's help, the classmates stopped comparing themselves with each other and started talking about their school days. The conversation was quite pleasant, and when it was time to leave, the waiter was called over. Jinzi took out his wallet worth 5,000 yuan and asked calmly, "How much?" The waiter said, "Hello sir, the meal is 3,580 yuan. As for the wine, our leader is still asking." A classmate suddenly thought of something and asked, "This wine should be very expensive, right?" Jinzi smiled and said, "Things on TV shopping are all promotional items, how expensive can they be?" Mr. Chen just said that this silent ship was sunk and the wine was buried in the sea for more than 80 years, and it has a history of 100 years. A classmate reminded. Everyone then looked at Chen Zhong. Chen Zhong said, "The value of this wine does lie in its historical significance. It was auctioned once at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Moscow, and the price was probably less than 2 million Chinese yuan." "How much?" Jinzi screamed, his legs went limp and he fell to the ground. "Oh, this is a replica of the Ship of Silence, but the price is also 700,000 per bottle," Chen Zhong explained. Jinzi wanted to breathe a sigh of relief, but he still couldn't stand the blow and trembled. "Are you kidding me?" Chen Zhong shook his head and said, "Don't worry, I'm very honest. Don't you think I can't recognize expensive wine? Isn't this proving myself? Besides, squad leader, you are not a person who lacks money." At this time, the waiter received the message and said in surprise, "This gentleman is right, this bottle of wine is a replica of the Ship of Silence, and the price is indeed 700,000. Jinzer's last hope was shattered. He opened a company, but it only had 2 employees and his own savings were only a few 100,000 yuan. Their Mercedes-Benz was actually bought with a loan. He glanced at Chen Zhong, who was still eating meat. He was really being cheated by this gigolo. He swallowed and said, "I'm sorry, classmates, this meal is really beyond our budget. I think we should go Dutch today, right?" Just now the students were drinking and chatting happily, reciting poems and praising their friendship, but in the blink of an eye, they seemed to be filled with bitterness and hatred. "Class monitor, you should be honest. You called us together and promised to treat us to a meal. Now it's not fair for you to ask us to pay, right? You drive a Mercedes-Benz. You're a big boss, but judging by your stingy attitude, I can guess that your company is not big and you bought the car with a loan. I'm actually living a very hard life, I only make 4,000 yuan a month. If you make it clear that we have to share the money equally, I won't come." Jinzi was so embarrassed that he looked very ugly. Suddenly he remembered that there was a rich woman here and asked expectantly, "Ziying, can you lend me 500,000? "Captain, I'm really sorry. My company has had a lot of problems recently. I can offer 100,000 yuan, but 500,000 yuan is too much." Su Ziying really wanted to help, but was powerless. "My classmates." Jinzer felt very disappointed. "I'm so sorry, everyone. I just remembered that the baby didn't drink milk. I have to go back and feed him. Yes, I have work to do, so I have to leave first." The students made excuses to leave. At this time, 3 people knocked on the door, walked in, and asked in surprise, "Are you planning to end the show?" The classmates wondered who they were and why they barged in so rudely, and seemed to know one of them. The waiter quickly said to one of the young men in suits, "General manager." Everyone was surprised to find out the identity of this person, who was the owner of this hotel, Xu Zuan. "Huh? Someone ordered the Piper Heidelberg Brut I just got so quickly." Xu Zuan asked in surprise, "May I ask who ordered this wine?" The person who ordered it must be someone with sentiment and taste. Chapter 10. This is about a man's dignity. Jinzi looked at Chen Zhong and couldn't help but sneer, then Manager Xu guessed wrong. The person who ordered this bottle of red wine is the one with the worst taste. Xu Zuan smiled and said, "I think you guessed wrong. Mr. Chen is a person who is indifferent to fame and fortune, and has a keen sense of beauty. I think he is the one who knows wine best. In order to repay his appreciation, I decided to give this bottle of wine for free." "What? The bill is free? That's $700,000 a bottle of red wine." Everyone was shocked. And how did Xu Zuan know Chen Zhong, a gigolo? Chen Zhong smiled and declined, "Thank you for your approval, manager. I want to save this opportunity for when I treat others. This time it's my wife's classmate who's treating us. He's a big boss, so he doesn't need it for free. Jin Zed's smiling face suddenly became stiff, and he cried, Mr. Chen, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have targeted you tonight. Please forgive me. To be honest, I really can't afford so much money. Chen Zhong shrugged and said, that's none of my business. Xu Zuan realized something and asked, you were the one who deliberately didn't let the waiter tell Mr. Chen the room number, right? Character is in the way a person expresses himself. You don't have a chance to get a free meal. Wait until you have enough money before leaving here. Jin Zi had no choice but to take out his savings, transfer his Mercedes-Benz, and call his family, and finally he managed to get together 700,000 yuan. He was in tears, and the meal went bankrupt for him. After coming out of the Grand Capital Hotel, all the students had completely developed respect for Chen Zhong and left after greeting him in a friendly manner. Su Ziying said with an unhappy look on her face, you had the chance to get a free meal just now, why didn't you take it? You're still thinking about getting a free meal in the future, you're so selfish, you're embarrassing yourself. The class monitor asked everyone to attend the reunion. Although everyone had different feelings, they were still very happy to see each other again. She already felt ashamed for not being able to help the monitor, and when given the chance, Chen Zhong gave it up. This made her, who came from a big family, very embarrassed. If this got out, what would others say? Moreover, Jinju's general manager gave him a chance, but he wanted to keep it for next time. Doesn't he that make them seem petty? Chen Zhong said angrily, wife, he expressed his affection for you in front of me, which clearly shows that he doesn't take me seriously. If I don't teach him a lesson, he will do something to you one day. This is about a man's dignity. Su Ziying sneered, what's wrong with other men expressing their love for me? I like it this way, what's your business? Let's make yourself strong first. Chen Zhong was so excited that he couldn't help but say, wife, maybe I have the ability. You have been frowning these days, just tell me what problems you have encountered. Su Ziying laughed and said, there was a fire in the factory, and 20 million worth of goods were destroyed. Most of them have been ordered, and the delivery time is approaching. If you breach the contract, you will have to pay more than 40 million. Can you afford it? Chen Zhong clenched his hands, then let go. Although he had great strength, he was afraid that he would lose her completely after taking over. By the way, don't you know Xu Zuan? What is your relationship? Su Ziying still had some hope for him, but she could never be so generous as to waive the bill of 700,000 yuan. Oh, Chen Zhong explained, I saved a drowning child. Manager Xu must be impressed by my character. Su Ziying snorted coldly. It was really funny that she had hope for him. Chen Zhong knew what she was thinking, but Xu Zuan probably didn't just do it for stationmaster whose sake he probably had something to ask of him. The higher the status of a person, the greater the trouble he will encounter, and he doesn't want to get involved. At this time, traffic returned to normal, and Su Ziying stopped a car and left. It seems my wife can't handle it anymore. I can only show off one of my talents again. Chen Zhong had been bullied since he was a child, and he kept thinking about how he could make himself stronger. He often studied something and then made reagents to use on animals. After doing it countless times, it really worked, from instantly increasing strength, speed, or vision to a few seconds, 10 seconds, and now it can last for more than a minute. In fact, there are energy-enhancing potions for sale outside, and he bought some to compare. He is sure that the materials he uses are much cheaper than those of the other party. As long as he sells the patent or mass-produces it, he can earn countless money, but he will undoubtedly be targeted by those who control the energy potion. Now he needs a partner to be responsible for sales, and this person must have very strong skills. Chen Zhong thought of a fat man who belonged to an international killer organization. He once came to China on a mission and was seriously injured, but was saved by Chen Zhong. As a result, they made a friend, who was one of Chen Zhong's few friends. Thinking about it, I called, but the call was answered. Chen Zhong is a persistent person. How could he allow his savior to call him, but he was turned away? After several calls, the person on the other end picked up the phone and whispered, hello, who is this? Are you annoying? Seeing that he didn't save his number, Chen Zhong was a little angry and asked, then listen to their voice, who am I? It's A Zhong, why are you calling me for no reason? The fat man said in a very unhappy tone. Chen Zhong said coldly, is this how you talk to your savior? Do you have any conscience? The fat man still said unhappily, guess where I am. Where? Chen Zhong was stunned. In the palace of Ying Kingdom, said the fat man. Chen Zhong was puzzled and asked, the imperial palace of Ying Kingdom. What are you doing there? Yinghua and Huoguo have a long-standing feud, and the other royal family does not welcome the Chinese. Do you think you are here as a guest? Our organization has assigned me a mission to kill a prince. The reward is 30 million, and I won't have to work for a long time, said the fat man. Is this a good time for you to make a phone call? Chen Zhong asked. The fat man got angry and said, I've been hanging up the phone, why do you keep calling me? Do you know what the consequences will be if, above the moon, is floating in the royal family? Chen Zhong was stunned and asked, what are the consequences? Right now, 10 people with samurai swords are chasing me, and 4 people with guns are shooting at me, the fat man said, panting. Then there was a gunshot and the phone fell to the ground. I hope God will bless you and let you come back alive. Chen Zhong mourned in silence and was about to hang up the phone. Suddenly, a voice came from the other side, in awkward Chinese, asking, are you an accomplice of the killer? I will find you and peel off all your skin to make a human skin sofa for me. Chen Zhong did not reply. He just thought that the people from Ying country were perverts. At the same time, he felt very wronged. He had attracted an enemy for no reason, and it was quite powerful. This fat guy didn't even know to turn off his phone while doing his mission. Just when he was feeling depressed, the phone rang again. Chen Zhong thought it was the fat man's phone, but the caller ID showed it was his mother-in-law. Drink upstairs, mother-in-law. Hey, go to Yingying's company quickly. She is being blocked by a group of people. Wang Shufan seemed very anxious. Chapter 11. My wife is maliciously asked for her salary. Chen Zhong was startled and asked, who is blocking the road? Wang Shufan said angrily, how would I know? Stop talking nonsense. If it's too late, you might get beaten. I'll be right there, I'll be right there. Chen Zhong quickly rode his motorcycle, increased the speed to a very high level, and rushed towards Perfect Company. Boss, when will you pay us our salaries? You are a member of the Su family, one of the top 10 families. Do you still lack this little money? If you don't pay me, don't even think about joining the company. You must give me an explanation. Su Ziying was surrounded by a dozen workers outside the gate of Perfect Company, but she remained calm and said, Dear workers, our factory has recently encountered logistics problems. Goods are piled up, and there was a fire, which led to financial constraints. Please don't worry, I am working hard to solve it. How long will it take to resolve? 1 or 2 days? Or 1 or 2 months? You can't just stop paying the workers because the company has problems, right? Yes, our family is just waiting for the salary to be paid, otherwise we won't have a chance to eat. A group of workers didn't listen to the explanation at all and said one after another. Su Ziying assured, don't worry, I will definitely pay it out within a month. 1 month is too long, President. The necklace on your neck is worth hundreds of thousands, right? The workers rushed over shouting. Some wanted to tear off the necklace from her neck, while others wanted to take advantage of her on purpose. After all, the president was a great beauty. Su Ziying's face was filled with fear. She had never expected that the usually honest worker would become like this. She was unable to move forward or backward. Suddenly, the crowd began to disperse like water. A man rushed in and kicked several people who were still reaching out their hands. Chen Zhong stood in front of his wife with a dignified manner. Who are you? You actually want to rob in broad daylight. I have already reported it to the police. Just wait to be arrested. Before that, if you still want to do it, you have to step over my dead body first. The workers were frightened by his words. When they came to their senses, they realized the purpose of their visit and shouted. What do you do? Are you the CEO's lackey? I remember now. I met him once when I came to the company. He is the son-in-law of the Su family, a gigolo. I can't pay their wages, no matter who I tell, it's useless. Get out of the way, or I'll beat you first. A worker came up and started slapping and pushing, trying to show his bravery. Chen Zhong grabbed his palm directly, pulled it downward, and then kicked him in the chest. He screamed in pain and fell to the ground. Our company stipulates that there are 3 days left before salary is paid, but you always pay it 15 days in advance. Are you unable to make ends meet? I think you are here to cause trouble on purpose. The workers showed signs of panic and their aggressive attitude disappeared. The worker who was knocked down just now took the opportunity to shout, I feel so miserable. I failed to ask for my salary and was beaten. The president of Perfect Company ordered people to beat up vulnerable people. Where is justice? When passers-by saw this, they gathered around and took pictures, thinking they were playing a role of justice. Su Ziying thought she had temporarily avoided the crisis, but she did not expect to encounter an even bigger crisis. People did not want to listen to her explanation. She pushed Chen Zhong, who still had a good self-image, away and angrily said, Why are you always so stupid? If you can't help, can you just stay aside? Chen Zhong was not praised, but scolded instead. He stammered, Wife, I'm afraid. I'm afraid you'll get beaten. What a waste. Su Ziying ignored him. Workers, please make way. A man with a bandage on his head walked in and said, Being emotional won't solve the problem. I understand your feelings, but don't let a good thing become counterproductive. When has Perfect Company ever delayed your wages? The workers calmed down when they saw that the other party was dressed like a successful person. One of the workers said, This has never been delayed. That's it. Every company will encounter problems. If it's always like this, how can it operate? This person is Sun Dasheng, who drives a Porsche. Sun Dasheng said, Let me introduce myself to you all. I am the president of Dasheng Company and a member of the Sun family. The Sun family, ranked 9th among the top 10 families, is one level higher than the Su family. I know, I've seen him, he's the 4th young master of the Sun family. The workers hurriedly called out in a flattering manner, Hello, Mr. Sun, what you just said is right. We are excited. Sun Dasheng turned around and said with a face full of reproach, Ying, do you still consider me a friend? Why didn't you tell me about this situation? It's also my fault that I didn't go deep into your life. I didn't care about you enough. This is my fault. Su Ziying said gratefully, Thank you Dasheng, if you hadn't shown up in time, I wouldn't know what to do. Kid, you have always liked to take on everything by yourself since you were young. Aren't you tired? Wang Shufen walked over with a bag. Su Ziying couldn't help it, her eyes turned red, and she cried out, Mom. Oh, you should let a man take care of you. Wang Shufen sighed and turned to look at Sun Dasheng with admiration. Sun Dasheng was very proud. He looked at Chen Zhong with contempt and said, Relying on brute force will only intensify conflicts. That is what inferior people do. Ying, how much of the workers' wages have not been paid? Su Ziying said embarrassedly, In total, the total is 5 million. 5 million. Sun Dasheng was surprised. As far as he knew, there weren't many workers in her factory, so the salary was high enough. He said generously, I'll pay you the salary first. Don't be embarrassed. It won't be too late to pay me back when your company is running well. Then Sun Dasheng said to someone beside him, Please notify the finance department to come over and hand over to the Perfect staff. Make sure to send the money today. I understand, Mr. Sunday. The man turned around and did it. The workers' problems were solved, and they all shouted enthusiastically to Sun Dasheng. Thank you, Mr. Sunday. Thank you, Mr. Sunday. You and President Su are a perfect match. It would be great if you were our boss, Dad. Chen Zhong was watching from the side and knew that this was all a farce and that someone was probably behind it. These workers are obviously the troublemakers in the factory, otherwise why didn't other workers come? Wang Shufen said with emotion, Dasheng, I didn't expect that you were in the hospital and you were still on and for drip. You were able to remove the needle. I am really touched. She glanced at Chen Zhong again and said in a cold voice, Unlike some trash, don't even think about counting on him. Sun Dasheng smiled gracefully and said, As long as Ying and Auntie have any difficulties, I will do my best to help them. Wang Shufen was very satisfied with his answer. She looked at him as if he was her son-in-law. She said to Su Ziying, Ying, Dasheng has solved such a big problem for you. You must treat him to a meal. Chen Zhong stood alone, surrounded by people, but he seemed to be abandoned by the whole world. Chapter 12 If you dare to seduce my wife, I will beat you to death. Su Ziying didn't even look at Chen Zhong again and said, Then let's go to the Western restaurant on Dongcheng Street. Sun Dasheng was surprised for a moment, then his heart became active and he responded, Okay. Today he had changed to a Ferrari, opened the door and invited her to get in, then happily got into the driver's seat again. The Western restaurant on Dongcheng Street. Chen Zhong's heart sank for a moment, because that was known as a restaurant for couples. The wife said this in front of him. Is she trying to cheat on him? Chen Zhong felt very uncomfortable. After seeing his mother-in-law leave, he sat on the motorcycle feeling extremely confused. I can't let her leave me. Even though she's not nice to me, at least she makes me feel at home. I gradually recovered, encouraged myself, and rode my bike to the Western restaurant. He slipped in through the back door, found a sheltered seat, and sat down next to them, turning his head to look from time to time. Ying, your hands are so cold. You should wear something thicker. Sun Dasheng asked with concern. Chen Zhong was about to stand up in anger, but he suppressed himself. He actually touched his wife's hand. This was really too much. Su Ziying pulled back and smiled unnaturally. Dasheng, don't be like this. Sun Dasheng said eagerly, Ying, you asked me to come to this couple's restaurant. Aren't you expressing your love for me? I already understand. Su Ziying was surprised and said, this is a couple's restaurant. I didn't know that I'm already married. You don't like that loser, so why make yourself suffer? I can give you a sense of security. I'm also a member of the Sun family and can help you in your career. Isn't it perfect for us to get together? Do you dislike me? Sun Dasheng asked the question with a hint of resentment, as if he was feeling sorry for his own waiting and for her being unfair. Su Ziying lowered her head and replied, Dasheng, I don't dislike you, my thoughts are very confused, can you give me some time to think about it? How was your conversation with that client today? Sun Dasheng had no choice but to change the subject, but he felt he was one step closer. Su Ziying shook her head sadly and said, the negotiation didn't go through. The other party's price was too high. If it's too late, I'll have to pay the penalty. Sun Dasheng knew that the opportunity had come, and he sighed and said, if I had known earlier, I would not have invested the money. I could only borrow money from the family, which would put me in a passive position. But there is another way. What method? Su Ziying was moved. Sun Dasheng did not answer first, but said, Ying, if your family does not perform well at the family banquet, you will become useless. Su Ziying was suddenly startled, and thinking of the clan banquet, she fell into deep thought. Sun Dasheng continued, if I invest in perfect, I can save it and make the company stronger, provided we get married, so I can get Darby's funds from the family. Su Ziying was in a dilemma. Wanmei was still a family business in name, so they were very cautious about outsiders getting a stake in it. But if you don't have money, it's hard to get through the crisis, and many marriages are meant to strengthen interests. She said, then I will wait for a few days and find an opportunity to meet Chen. Sun Dasheng was delighted, knowing that she was going to agree. Suddenly Chen Zhong stood up and said, you bastard, you dare to seduce my wife, I will beat you to death. Then he picked up a plate and smashed it on Sun Dasheng's face, jumped over and kicked him, making him scream in pain. Stop it. Su Ziying was furious and slapped Chen Zhong on the face. You are such a loser, you actually followed me. Many people in the Western restaurant were watching this scene, feeling indignant and aggrieved at the arrogance of this cheating woman. That's outrageous. You think you're justified in stealing people's things. This is the decline of morals. Women think their husbands are incompetent, speak coldly to them, and admire successful people. Oh, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. Su Ziying originally wanted to hit Chen Zhong, but after hearing everyone's criticism, she suppressed her anger and decided not to do it. The three of them hurried out. After all, it was a shameful thing. Chen Zhong followed and said, I'm sorry, honey. I didn't know that people would misunderstand you. Su Ziying ignored him and got into the Ferrari first. Sun Dasheng said coldly, good boy, you dare to attack me, just wait for me. Then the car drove away. Chen Zhong did not chase after her. The onlookers helped him and should have reminded her that cheating in marriage would have a big impact, especially in a big family, which would only be a scandal. He went back home. By then, Wang Shufan had already eaten, and Wang Cai was eating the leftovers from lunch. Chen Zhong came to the study, opened the window and let in the air-conditioned air. What happened today really made him angry. He took out a medical book and lay on his bed on the floor to read. Wang Shufan pushed the door open. She was wearing silver-white pajamas, which made her figure look even more graceful, and her skin was fair with a rosy glow. She walked over aggressively, stepped on Chen Zhong's chest, and stared at him closely. What did you put in the soup you cooked at noon? Chen Zhong didn't dare to take his mother-in-law's feet away. He could only move his body, trying to get away from her stepping on him, but he felt that she was trying harder. Mother-in-law, what's wrong? Is there any problem? I boiled the herbs to treat Yingying's cold body disease. Wang Shufen looked down and asked, just based on the medical books you read? These medical books contain a lot of knowledge that is very effective. Chen Zhong Dao. Wang Shufen taunted, when Yingying was a child, I took her to famous hospitals across the country for treatment of her cold constitution. After dozens of treatments by experts, they couldn't cure her. You, a stinking migrant worker, want to cure her? Isn't that wishful thinking? Chen Zhong couldn't prove it. Wang Shufen's eyes turned cold and she said, I took your soup to the hospital for testing. It does generate heat, but it can make people lose their minds and do impulsive things. Now that you can't get her, you want to use force. Chen Zhong said quickly, Mother-in-law, I haven't finished brewing it yet. Even if it's not finished, it won't make people lose their minds, unless the person is not determined. Wang Shufen said angrily, you still dare to quibble. If I don't let you suffer a little, you will become more and more daring. Come here. Wang Shufen dragged Chen Zhong out, twisted his ear hard and said, it seems like I can't do this without teaching you a lesson. Oh, it hurts, mother-in-law, I was wrong, please stop twisting me. Chen Zhong begged for mercy. Wang Shufen twisted his hand again and said, you made a mistake. No, you did not make a mistake. You did a great job. This is my reward for you. Then he twisted it a few more times. Hiss. Chen Zhong took a breath, knowing that she was speaking in a sarcastic way, but he still said, Mother-in-law, I was wrong. I shouldn't have gone to make medicine so casually. I shouldn't have been so bold. Wang Shufen did not take any more action. Instead, she put her face close to Chen Zhong's face, only a few centimeters away. Chapter 13 What is the cheapest thing about men? Chen Zhong could even feel her breath. Wang Shufen said with contempt, remember this, you can enter the Su family, but it does not mean that you are recognized. Cats and dogs can also enter the door of the Su family. You have to know your place. I believe you know the meaning of this better than cats and dogs, right? Chen Zhong lowered his eyes and said, I know. That's good. To teach you a lesson, you should stand in the living room tonight. Don't let me find you lying down, or get out of the house. Chen Zhong looked up at his mother-in-law who was walking away with her waist twisted, and felt a little breathless. It wasn't because he was punished, but because she had never accepted him and always used sharp words to humiliate him. Why are people so obsessed with status and money? This made him sigh deeply. About 1 o'clock in the morning. The door opened, and Su Ziying swayed her body, changed her shoes and walked in. Wife, why are you drinking again? Chen Zhong smelled a strong smell of alcohol, and it was a quite strong alcohol. Su Ziying stepped back suddenly, frightened, and did not notice that there was another person in the darkness. She felt for the switch and turned on the light in the living room, and saw Chen Zhong standing aside, looking at her with concern. Looking at this husband who married into her family, the anger that had been raging in her heart disappeared. Chen Zhong said, Wife, do you want me to make you some egg soup? To warm your stomach. It's best not to drink when you're alone outside. Someone at home is also worried about you. Su Ziying smiled and said, I've heard this before, and today I think it makes a lot of sense. Do you know what the cheapest thing about men is? Chen Zhong shook his head. Su Ziying's eyes gradually showed mockery, and she said, You are a useless man. No matter how well you do housework, you are still an incompetent man. Chen Zhong said hesitantly, I am sincere to you, does this mean nothing? Su Ziying paused and snorted, I was blocked by those workers. Do you know why my mother called you? She wanted to see if you could handle it. At the same time, she also called Dasheng. Obviously, you lost, and lost completely. Dasheng was right. Brute force is only a method used by inferior people. Chen Zhong was shocked. He didn't expect Wang Shufen to set a trap for him. He quickly explained, the problem is not as simple as you see. The salary has not yet been paid. They must have been taught by someone to make trouble. You can only make excuses. Su Ziying's disappointment was evident in her words. You were so sincere, but what did you solve? Chen Zhong watched her walk back to the bedroom, opened his mouth, but said nothing. In the past 2 years, he had solved countless troubles for her in secret, but he just didn't say anything. Chen Zhong was awakened by a basin of cold water. His body was a little stiff after sleeping against the wall for a whole night. You are such an animal. You can even fall asleep while standing? Have you forgotten what you do? Wang Shufen shouted. Chen Zhong was still a little hysterical and asked, "What are you doing?" "I'm hungry, hurry up and cook for me." Wang Shufen wanted to slap him again to wake him up, but she held back. Chen Zhong still felt somewhat relieved, as he still had value after all. Wang Shufen saw that he had become lively again and snorted coldly. He is a typical migrant worker. He doesn't even feel sleepy after standing all night. After the meal is ready, he goes to the roof to clear the snow and unclogs the toilet in my room. Oh. Chen Zhong hurried to the kitchen. I saw a vast expanse of white outside. There was originally no problem with their house, but Wang Shufen forced herself to add another floor. There was no problem at ordinary times, but when it snowed, she was worried that the weight would be too heavy and cause the top floor to tilt. After finishing the meal, I went up to the roof to clean up, and suddenly I saw a Ferrari driving over. That son Dasheng has come here shamelessly again. How despicable. There is usually an extension board on the roof to store water. When the water accumulates to a certain level, it will hang down. Sometimes it is not flexible, so a rope is added to make it hang down. Chen Zhong had piled up a lot of snow on the extension board, so he pulled the line and went downstairs. The bell rang. Chen Zhong deliberately opened the door and took a look. In order to have a good image, son Dasheng had actually taken off the gauze. He was wearing an expensive suit and rubbing his arms, looking very cold. Chen Zhong closed the door again. Damn, this piece of trash, he's pretending not to see me. Son Dasheng was so angry. He was beaten by him yesterday and he hasn't settled the score with him yet, but he still dares to be so arrogant and rude. He rang the doorbell several times, but there was no response. Wang Shufen asked, "Chen Zhong, why is there someone ringing the doorbell? Who is it?" "Maybe it's a stray dog." Chen Zhong said. Why would a stray dog ring the doorbell? Wang Shufen was thinking when the phone rang. As soon as she answered it, she cursed, "Chen Zhong, why don't you open the door when Dasheng is outside? I think you are asking for trouble again. Hurry and open the door for me." Chen Zhong had no choice but to do as he was told. Son Dasheng said contemptuously, "This is the only way you can deal with me. A lowly person like you will never be able to stop me from getting in." Chen Zhong smiled, took out a needle from his pocket, and flicked it at the string tied to the stairs, and the string broke. No matter how well connected a person is, he won't last long if he keeps having bad luck. Just as son Dasheng was about to ask what it meant, a pile of snow suddenly fell on his head, with a red brick in the middle. He screamed, but because of Shui's resistance he didn't bleed, but he was still stunned for a moment. Wang Shufen hurried over and was very surprised. Son Dasheng was excellent, but his luck was too bad. I just drove into a ditch and was hit by the snow on top. Son Dasheng recovered and suspected that it was Chen Zhong's doing, but how could he grasp the time so accurately? But after meeting Chen Zhong, I have been a bit unlucky, this unlucky guy. Seeing the food on the table, he was surprised and said, "Auntie, you haven't eaten yet." "Sorry, I should have waited in the car." Su Ziyin came out and asked, "Dasheng, have you eaten? If not, let's sit together." Son Dasheng said politely, "I really haven't eaten yet. When I'm busy at work, I don't often eat in the morning. I'd better go out and wait." Chen Zhong quickly said, "I'll go open the door for you." Son Dasheng had no choice but to walk out. "If you don't talk, no one will think you're dumb." Wang Shufen scolded, then smiled and said, "Dasheng, sit down. When you come here, treat it like your own home." Son Dasheng looked proud at Chen Zhong. Chen Zhong would not let him get his wish, and stressed, "Mother-in-law, I only cooked enough for 3 people, and I really didn't know he was coming." "That's easy. You can just let the guests eat that portion, right?" Wang Shufen said. "How can I feel embarrassed about that?" Son Dasheng sat down and took a sip of rice soup. Chen Zhong went to the stairs, put away the silver needle, tied the rope again, bent an iron hook on the roof, and began to unclog his mother-in-law's toilet. Chapter 14, First Time Being Praised. Son Dasheng kept his eyes on Chen Zhong, as if he was afraid that he would do something bad to him, as the other party did not have good intentions. Auntie, this idiot, no, what is Chen Zhong doing? Oh, the toilet in my room is blocked and the water can't flow. I asked him to unclog it. Wang Shufan explained. Seeing that she didn't care about humiliating Chen Zhong, Dasheng became bolder and said with a smile, he is so stupid. He doesn't even use his brain. He only knows how to use brute force. He doesn't understand that laboris are inferior people. Su Ziying asked, a blocked toilet is also a troublesome thing. Do you have a better solution? They all cleared their blockages that way, and they haven't seen a better way yet. If it were possible, it wouldn't be so troublesome and uncomfortable. Of course I have, Dasheng was ready to show off, my method doesn't require any effort at all, it can be done easily. Wang Shufan was surprised and said, Dasheng, you are so busy every day, how can you still take care of small things? From these details, we can see that your success is not without reason. Chen Zhong was quite speechless. If a person has money and a career, then whatever he does is right. If a person has no money and no career, then everything he does will be wrong. This formed a sharp contrast, and made me feel unhappy. Dasheng moved his cell phone, and the doorbell rang after a while. There were two people outside, one was in a suit and tie, probably an employee of his company, and the other was the owner of the fish shop. He was holding a bag full of loaches, and it seemed like there were quite a lot of them. Su Ziying remembered something and said in surprise, I've seen such an experiment on TV. You can use loaches to unclog the sewer. Knowledge is power. Ying, you know a lot. Dasheng praised, then looked at Chen Zhong with contempt and said, it's disgusting to poke with an iron hook. It might fall outside. Just use loaches to let them drill in directly. Chen Zhong shook his head and said, you think too simply. This toilet is specially made. It won't get clogged under normal circumstances. There must be a relatively large obstruction. How can a loach pass through? It's not practical at all. On the contrary, it aggravates the degree of blockage and is particularly cruel. Whether it's practical or not will be revealed in a moment. You don't have the ability to make money and you're not as good as others at doing things. Stand aside and learn. Wang Shufan snorted coldly. Chen Zhong didn't say anything else. The three watched as Dasheng poured the loaches in the bag into the toilet, and bubbles appeared in the toilet. See, I told you that Dasheng is better than you. Loaches will crawl into any gap. Wang Shufan said. Dasheng straightened his suit, which seemed to have wrinkles, and said slowly, I just said that those who work with their hands are inferior people, and those who work with their minds are superior people. People like you who sell their physical strength can only work for superior people. Wang Shufan agreed very much and said, that's right. Su Ziying also agreed that the differences between people can be seen from the different ways they do things. She saw Chen Zhong pulling her sleeve and pulling her out of the bathroom, and looked over in confusion. Chen Zhong said, it's going to explode. What outbreak? Su Ziying asked, looking in the direction he was staring. The toilet was bubbling continuously, and the water that should have gone down kept rising, and then erupted. The entire toilet was sprayed everywhere. Dasheng, who always seemed very smart, was standing at the front with his face facing the toilet, so he was naturally sprayed all over. Wang Shufan was not spared and was covered in it. What's inside my clothes? It's moving around. Chen Zhong, hurry up and find it out for me. Wang Shufan jumped around in fear. Chen Zhong reached his hand around her neck and pulled out a loach from her back, saying, Mother-in-law, I told you this isn't a good idea, right? Are you particularly proud of your skill in unclogging toilets? Wang Shufan asked. Chen Zhong said, that's not the case. Wang Shufan said angrily, then what are you still standing there for? Quickly unclog my toilet. The toilet was still spraying, but it had become smaller. Chen Zhong held the iron hook from one side, tilted it at an angle, stretched it into the hole, and hooked it. Wahua wahua. The sound of running water was heard. Several people looked at Chen Zhong. This is a simple method, right? You have to go to the market to buy loaches, and it may not work. Mom, Dasheng, you two should stand up first and go to the other two bathrooms to wash up. Su Ziying suddenly said, what is this hook? They looked carefully and found that it was a large piece of cloth, which must have been blocking it. It was probably accidentally dropped while wiping. Wang Shufan's trouble was solved, so she said something nice, Chen Zhong, you did a good job. You need to be more professional in this area. Thank you, mother-in-law, for the compliment. It was the first time that Chen Zhong received compliments and he was very excited. Then I connected the water pipe and flushed the entire toilet, then sprayed it with disinfectant, and it was done in a short while. Before I could breathe a sigh of relief, Su Ziying came over and pointed at a pile of clothes and said, "Don't you have any sense? Don't I have to tell you before I make anything? Anything else?" Chen Zhong asked. What else? Why are you impatient after doing a little work? Su Ziying frowned. Hurry up and wash my mother's and Dasheng's clothes. Can't you smell the odor in the house? Also, change your clothes and give them to Dasheng. Chen Zhong hasn't eaten since last night until morning, and now he's busy all the time. Can this be called doing some work? He said a little aggrievedly, I only have this set of clothes, and I gave them to him. What should I wear? Huang Shufan had finished her shower and changed into a set of pajamas that sparkled with gold. She wiped her hair and said, Ying just said that Dasheng is going to invest in Perfect Company and become their vice president. Part of the company's profits in the future will be generated by him, which means that he will pay for your food and clothing. Su Ziying looked at him and said, Take off your clothes quickly, we're going to the factory soon. Chen Zhong couldn't help but think of what Sun Dasheng said last night. He didn't expect his wife to agree so quickly. Sun Dasheng's clothes had actually been dried, but he didn't want to wear them anymore because he always felt they smelled. He forgot to ask his subordinates to get more clothes, so he just wore Chen Zhong's down jacket. Nothing was more important than signing the contract right now. He walked out with Su Ziying and was about to get in the car. Chen Zhong ran out, wearing Sun Dasheng's suit, and said, Wife, don't you want me to do housework all the time? Let me go to the factory, too. I haven't been there yet. Su Ziying's expression flashed with surprise. Chen Zhong was already good-looking to begin with, but he looked even more handsome in this outfit. She thought to herself that it was just appearance, and thinking about how he had protected her in front of the workers, she nodded and said, Come on. Chen Zhong sat in the back with her. Originally, Sun Dasheng wanted to sit with her, but he could only sit in the co-pilot seat. He was very jealous of his looks, as he was actually surpassed in appearance. Chapter 15 Temperament. Who is the lowbrow? Some cosmetics companies do not have their own cosmetics factories. They usually outsource the products to other factories and then put their own brand on the products. Perfect Company started out making cosmetics before developing its brand. This puzzled family members, who believed that it slowed down the pace of development, and the company was ridiculed by many. But Su Ziying managed to get through it all, but encountered problems with orders. After solving this problem, a fire broke out again. Sitting in the factory heading south of the city, Chen Zhong could feel that her mood was heavy and complicated. As for why we went to the factory, it was because the factory was the most valuable. Moreover, inspection is a normal procedure before signing a contract. On the South Ring, a clean factory appeared before us. The factory leaders had been notified and sent workers to line the streets to welcome them, holding flowers in their hands. There were only a small number of rebellious workers who asked Su Ziying for their wages, and they were definitely not allowed to show up. The vast majority of them understand the company's difficulties and are very worried about bankruptcy. The cosmetics industry is a highly profitable industry, and the president is a generous person, so the benefits are very good. It is a blessing for them to work in such a company. Dang dang dang. A gong sounded. Welcome, welcome, warmly welcome Mr. Sun to join the company. I hope that under your leadership, we can move towards glory in the future. Su Ziying's face looked a little ugly. The contract hadn't even been signed yet, and these leaders had already held a ceremony without authorization. I'm afraid they wouldn't have much regret if the company changed its name. But then she was surprised. These leaders had no idea who Sun Dasheng was, and they all shook hands with Chen Zhong, who was dressed in a suit and had a very elegant demeanor. Because Sun Dasheng changed into that old down jacket, he was left out. Chen Zhong laughed secretly, but did not explain. Instead, he scolded, You leaders, the company is in trouble now, but instead of seizing the time to start production, you are doing these empty things. If I don't invest in the company, will Perfect be finished? No, no. These leaders said hurriedly, but they didn't expect to be rejected. Su Ziying was very surprised that this loser just said something she couldn't say. A factory leader even said flatteringly, Perfect is not completely destroyed, but it is also half dead. Isn't it the injection from the Sun family that can bring the factory back to life? Chen Zhong said in a cold voice, it seems that this leader has no mentality of sharing hardships with perfect company. Even if the Sun family becomes a shareholder, you will side with others when problems arise in the future. I declare that you can get out. Fire one person first to make them afraid of their own inner selves. The factory leader was stunned. Was there anything wrong with trying to curry favor with the president? He turned to see the president, and when he saw her with a cold face, he realized that he was really finished. Everyone was frightened into silence by this scene. Sun Dasheng was very unhappy when he saw Chen Zhong impersonating him, but when he saw Su Ziying acquiesced, he kept silent. He followed behind with a feeling of being on a secret visit. When everyone knew that he was the fourth young master of the Sun family, they would definitely look like they didn't recognize the real him. The one following behind is the Su family's live-in son-in-law, right? What's there to be proud of? Thin arms and legs, compared to Mr. Sun, they are far inferior. Mr. Sun has a real manly figure. Look at him. He seems to be angry. He stands so straight. He doesn't have any temperament at all. The workers following behind were talking in low voices. Sun Dasheng was so angry that he almost died. He took 2 quick steps and said, "You are a gigolo, it's enough for you to pretend to be me. Prove that I am Mr. Sun." Chen Zhong glanced at him calmly and said, "Do you still need to prove your identity yourself? Doesn't that seem very low-brow?" Sun Dasheng wanted to explode, but when he thought about how low he was, he endured it. After walking for such a long time, people still couldn't see his temperament, which made him feel frustrated. Fortunately, those workers did not go too far. After all, it is embarrassing to talk about her husband in front of the president. The group visited the production workshop, raw material warehouse, etc. When preparing to return, Chen Zhong suddenly asked, "Why don't you visit the finished product warehouse?" The leaders seemed very embarrassed. At this time, Su Ziying gave him a look that warned him not to push his luck, and then said, "More than half of the finished product warehouse has been burned down, and it is being rebuilt now. Let's go and have a look after it is completed." Chen Zhong also saw some construction workers working. If it was completed, some remaining traces would be covered up. He turned to look at the leaders and caught his eye a middle-aged man in his 40s. The label on his uniform read, Production Workshop Director Wang Chunfeng. "Then you go to the office first. I'll go to the finished product warehouse." "Director Wang, are you willing to take me there?" Chen Zhong asked. Su Ziying didn't know what he was up to, and also thought that the contract signing could not be delayed, so she ignored him and went back to the office with everyone else. Wang Chunfeng stayed behind and asked puzzledly, "What does Mr. Sun want to see in the warehouse? It's half collapsed and there's a bad smell." "Curious." Chen Zhong said simply. "What is the reason?" Wang Chunfeng was a thoughtful person. In order to leave an impression on Mr. Sun, he said, "In fact, those leaders said that the company is going to fail. I personally have a different opinion." "Oh." Chen regained his interest. "Why?" "I know that Wanmei is in debt. Mr. Sun, in fact, Perfect has a relatively mature production line. After the products are made, the workers will repackage them, mark them, and store them in the warehouse through transportation. This is not available in some factories. In other words, once there are a large number of orders, it will definitely make money." Chen Zhong smiled. This director only saw one side. Many companies did not fail because of production. In the 1950s and 1960s, the country's production equipment was backward and the production technology was low. How could it still be profitable? When we arrived at the finished product warehouse, several workers were re-erecting the beams. Chen Zhong carefully avoided him. During the conversation on the way, Wang Chunfeng said that there were 3 warehouses in total, and the ones on fire were number 1 and number 2. Judging from the traces of the goods being moved, there is a safe distance between them, and the products are separated, and there is a smoke alarm on the middle column. The fire burned down the warehouse, which seemed a bit difficult. Chen Zhong looked around and asked, "What is the cause of the fire given by our factory?" Wang Chunfeng said, "After investigation, the factory leaders said that the fire in the warehouse was caused by aging of the lines during the transportation of goods." Chen Zhong smiled. This warehouse was built only 3 years ago. In the beginning, goods were transported by manpower and the conveyor belt had only been used for a year. Moreover, judging from the appearance, there was definitely no cutting of corners. There was also iron packaging on the outside. How could a fire break out? This is definitely an excuse for not being able to investigate. Suddenly he looked at the smoke sensor and took out a cigarette. Wang Chunfeng didn't dare to say that smoking was prohibited here, and he took the initiative to light it for him. Then he saw him take a puff and blew it under the smoke detector. Chapter 16. Are you the gigolo? You've been victimized. The smoke alarm didn't respond at all. Wang Chunfeng understood what he meant and said, the smoke detector was broken. I was just thinking about repairing it when the fire broke out. Har, is it such a coincidence? Chen Zhong smiled and took apart the sensor on the wall. The wiring inside was not complicated and the connection was normal. Chen Zhong discovered something unusual, so he cut one of the wires and connected it to another one. Wang Chunfeng was speechless. Even if this young master from a big family didn't understand the lines, he could at least tell the colors apart, right? Boss son, it won't work if the green line is against the green line, the red line is against the red line, or the red line is against the green line. Really? Chen Zhong asked back. After taking it, he took another puff of cigarette and blew it towards the bottom of the smoke detector. The smoke detector suddenly glowed red, started spinning, and an alarm sounded. Wang Chunfeng was surprised and asked, "What's going on? Was it bad when I bought it?" Chen Zhong said calmly, "Director Wang still doesn't understand what's going on." "You mean, someone deliberately damaged or replaced the smoke detector and set the warehouse on fire?" Wang Chunfeng connected these things together and was sure, who could it be? Chen Zhong did not answer and walked to warehouse number 2. It wasn't completely burned here, but the smell was stronger and some of the goods were piled up on one side. After tearing it open with his hands, he sniffed it and nodded, indicating that he understood something. "Director Wang, I have something to tell you." Chen Zhong looked serious. Wang Chunfeng stood up straight, realizing that he was going to investigate the arson incident, and he might be valued in the future, so he said, "Mr. Sun, you go ahead." Chen Zhong said, "Did you notice the man in the down jacket just now?" "I saw it. Isn't he the president's husband?" Wang Chunfeng said blankly, not quite understanding why they were talking about this. Chen Zhong looked around and saw no one, so he whispered, "I'm a little upset with this guy. Arrange a few reliable people to ambush him in the toilet closest to the president's office. Once he goes in, beat him up." Wang Chunfeng understood that the rumor among the company leaders that the fourth young master of the Sun family was interested in the president and that was why he invested in saving Perfect seemed to be true. The fact that Mr. Sun was able to entrust this kind of thing to him shows that he treats him as his own. Wang Chunfeng immediately patted his chest and assured, "Boss Sun, don't worry. I heard that the factory is still vacant for a deputy director position." Chen Zhong showed an expression that said, "I'm optimistic about you," which made Wang Chunfeng excited for a long time, and he quickly went to contact the contact. "I just reprimanded those factory leaders and fired one of them. This should have made my wife hesitate, but women are fragile after all. If Sun Dasheng stirs up trouble, she might sign the contract." Chen Zhong also hurried to the office. When he arrived, he found that the document had not been signed yet, which made him feel relieved. When Sun Dasheng saw the person coming, he was furious and said, "Hurry up and change your clothes. Your shabby clothes affect my temperament." "Although clothes can make people look elegant, the key still depends on the person," said Chen Zhong. Su Ziying mocked, "Do you think you have the temperament? Even if you dress well, you are still a waste." Har. Sun Dasheng laughed out loud. If it weren't for Su Ziying's help, he really wouldn't be able to argue with this guy. Chen Zhong felt as if he had been struck by a dimensionality reduction attack. He silently picked up the teapot and poured water into each cup. When it came to the last cup, he shook his sleeves and some laxative fell into it. "Ying, I think your factory is good. In fact, you don't have to come. Just looking at you as a person, I will sign." Sun Dasheng took the tea handed by Chen Zhong and took a sip. Su Ziying sighed inwardly. During this period, she kept hoping that a miracle would happen so that Perfect could be saved without having to invest in the company. But was this possible? As soon as Sun Dasheng picked up the pen, he suddenly felt his stomach churning, and a sense of loss was surging. He couldn't stand it, so he hurriedly said, "Sign later." As soon as Sun Dasheng arrived at the toilet, he saw several masked men and was wondering what was going on. The masked men looked at each other and finally at the workshop director. Wang Chunfeng didn't understand why the son-in-law changed into Mr. Sun's suit, but he didn't think much about it and shouted, "Hit me." "Damn, who are you?" "Well, you dare to hit me, do you know who I am? I will fire you all." Sun Dasheng shouted, and the surging feeling was lost, and he suddenly pooped in his pants. The masked men felt sick and hurried out of the office building. Wang Chunfeng changed his clothes and went to the president's office again. He knocked on the door and said, "President." Su Ziying was wondering why Sun Dasheng hadn't come back yet. She looked up and said, "Come in, Director Wang. What can I do for you?" "I have something to report to you," Wang Chunfeng said with all his courage. "I think the factory leaders did not conduct a rigorous investigation into the warehouse fire and were negligent. Just say whatever you want to say. I encourage everyone to offer their opinions and criticize the negative aspects." Su Ziying motioned for him to sit down. After all, this was a matter of offending the leader. Wang Chunfeng glanced at Chen Zhong and seemed to calm down. He said, "The fire in our warehouse was not caused by aging of the wiring, but someone deliberately set the fire." "What?" Su Ziying stood up, then sat down again and asked, "What do you base your judgment on? Do you have any evidence?" She had thought about this when the fire broke out, but immediately rejected it. Wang Chunfeng said, "President, think about it. The warehouse you arranged has been strictly controlled, and the conveyor has only been used for a year and is still wrapped inside. How could it age? How could the iron sheet be burned? And the wires of the smoke detector are connected in reverse, which means it has been used. It is obvious that someone has tampered with it." Su Ziying slammed her hand on the table. "I thought too simply. Director Wang, you are brave enough to stand up and speak about this matter. This is a credit to you." Wang Chunfeng breathed a sigh of relief and shook his head. "Actually, this is not something I discovered." "Not you?" Su Ziying wondered. Wang Chunfeng praised, "This was discovered by Mr. Sunday. I didn't expect that he would find out the real reason as soon as he came to the factory. This will also help me avoid another accident." Su Ziying looked at Chen Zhong in surprise. She didn't expect that he went to the warehouse to inspect, and he seemed to be quite capable. She asked, "Why don't you say what you found out yourself? Do you want others to highlight your prowess? You're already playing tricks now." Chen Zhong was helpless, thinking that no matter what he did, it was wrong, so he explained, "Wife, if I say it myself, can you listen to me? I said that everything is not that simple." Wang Chunfeng, who was standing by, was startled and stammered, "You are the one who lives off the woman, no, Mr. Chen. Is there any problem?" Chen Zhongduan asked seriously. Wang Chunfeng's innocent heart trembled. He hated this gigolo so much that he felt like he was going to be badly harmed. He turned around and ran to the toilet. Chapter 17 Wife, I am actually very capable. Su Ziying wondered why Wang Chunfeng became so frightened, but she didn't think much about it. In the toilet, Sun Dasheng felt extremely ashamed and cried quietly. "Everyone who came in to relieve themselves gave me strange looks. It stinks so much, this live-in son-in-law is really a gigolo, he's got diarrhea. How did the president fall for him? He's such a wimp. He thought he changed his temperament just by changing his clothes." At this time, Sun Dasheng didn't dare to explain his identity and had forgotten about signing the contract. He called his subordinates and had them send him a pair of pants. Even after he put them on, the unpleasant smell could not be concealed. When Wang Chunfeng arrived at the toilet, there was no one inside. Factory manager Gong Daguan went to negotiate with a major client. When he came back, he saw Sun Dasheng's car and learned about the situation. When he returned to the president's office, he told Sun Dasheng about the masked workers who beat him up. Su Ziying turned around and asked, "Did you find someone to beat Sun Dasheng?" Chen Zhong said with a wronged look on his face, "Wife, Sun Dasheng has changed back into that suit, doesn't that prove his identity? Besides, doesn't he have a mouth to speak? Besides, how could I predict that he would go to the toilet?" Su Ziying also thought it couldn't be him. So the purpose of beating Sun Dasheng was to prevent him from signing the contract. It was probably done by someone loyal to her. "Don't let me find out that you were the one who ordered this, or I'll make you pay." Chen Zhong just felt like an outsider. No, it's an enemy. Otherwise, her words wouldn't always be like a knife, hurting his heart. Su Ziying said, "Director Gong, please notify them to hold a meeting." Conference hall. Leaders at all levels took their seats. Su Ziying sat in the middle and said, I just thought about it carefully and I think Perfect still has hope of saving itself. There is no need to invest. Does anyone have a different opinion? Everyone has suddenly realized that they have identified the wrong Mr. Sunday. They all feel that this gigolo is shameless, pretending to be the fourth young master of the Sun family, and blame themselves for being blind. They had just discussed this in private, and the person who was fired was probably the one who flattered Sun Dasheng too early. Hearing the president's question at this time, he naturally did not dare to disagree. Okay, Su Ziying said, since you all have no objections, I hope you can focus on your work. Here are a few things to say and the relevant procedures. Chen Zhong was very surprised. After his wife confirmed the matter, she made a decision, but he didn't know to what extent. First, yesterday some workers gathered at the company to demand their wages, which created a certain negative public opinion. I suggest that they be fired. Second, the fire in the warehouse was caused intentionally. Anyone who knows or finds the person who set the fire will be rewarded with a minimum of 100,000 yuan. Third, the leaders involved in the investigation of the fire made hasty conclusions, and the warehouse staff and leaders neglected their duties. They were demoted to workers and dismissed. You should do your job well. I don't want to see you sitting there doing nothing. Correct your attitudes, go back and educate the workers, and work together to overcome the difficulties. Do you have any additional comments? Su Ziying looked around and saw leaders at all levels lowering their heads, realizing that the president was serious. Everyone left, but Su Ziying was still sitting in her seat. Chen Zhong pinched his leg and said, "Wife, sometimes you have to show your ruthlessness, otherwise they will do whatever they want." Su Ziying lowered her eyes and said, "Do yourself a good job first. You can't help a useless person." Chen Zhong immediately stood up and said, "Wife, I have never told you that I am actually very capable. If you are willing to give me a chance, I will surprise you." Su Ziying looked mocking but didn't say anything. Gong Dagwan came in hurriedly and said, "President, I'm sorry. Although I talked to the pretty girl company, they still didn't agree to extend the delivery date. Instead, they sent manager Li to urge the delivery. Lianmai Company is one of the major customers of Perfect Company. It mainly deals in low-end cosmetics and is quite famous in Jiancheng. Starting from a small company in the beginning, it is impossible without the help of Perfect. It can be said that the two companies have a deep friendship." Su Ziying frowned. The other party was aware of the Perfect situation. What was the point of urging for the goods at this time? I will talk to the chairman of the board of directors of Lianmai at that time. Director Gong, you go and handle it. Gong Dagwan said. Li Tsong specifically inquired about the president's whereabouts. He just wants to see you. Ask about my whereabouts. I can see you whenever I want. Su Ziying's voice was a little cold, and then she said, "Chen Zhong, didn't you say you would give me a big surprise? Today is the final delivery date. If you breach the contract, you will have to pay compensation. Do you have any way to deal with it?" Although Chen Zhong had been staying at home, he was very familiar with Perfect. He smiled and said, "Wife, you take a rest in the next room first. I'll go meet the manager of the pretty girl." Gong Dagwan said hurriedly, "President, this cannot be treated lightly." Su Ziying said calmly, "It's okay, go and call someone." After a while, Li Tsong came in with a bag under his arm and said arrogantly, "Boss Su, why are you delaying the delivery?" Chen Zhong sat in the middle and raised his eyes and said, "I believe you know that there was a fire in our factory warehouse, which caused damage to the goods. We are now speeding up production. I hope your company can delay it for a few days." Li Tsong didn't see Su Ziying, but asked Gong Dagwan, "Director Gong, who is this?" Chen Zhong smiled, his tone clearly showing contempt, and raised his eyebrows and said, "I am the vice president of Perfect, my last name is Chen." "Vice president? Let President Su come out to talk. The amount involved in this breach of contract is not something you can decide." Li Tsong had no intention of talking to him. Chen Zhong said seriously, "Since I'm here, it means I can fully represent the company's decision. And you have to understand that I'm the perfect second in command in terms of status, and you're just a small manager of a pretty girl, and you don't even know how many leaders you have. I'm giving you face by negotiating with you, and you should feel honored." Li Tsong was immediately embarrassed and said angrily, "Since the vice president has such great power, just pay the 10 million yuan penalty." Gong Dagwan was gloating over the other person's misfortune and had no negotiation skills at all. He also made malicious remarks, making it difficult for him not to pay compensation. Su Ziying also regretted letting this guy take the stage. She asked him to talk because she was confident that the pretty girl's boss would not make things difficult for her. Chen Zhong was cutting off his own path. Har har, Chen Zhong sneered and slapped the table, saying loudly, "Manager Li, your pretty girl company is so ungrateful." Seeing the other party's shock, Li Tsong was afraid that the other party might attack him if he lost control, so he put away his arrogance and asked, "Don't talk nonsense. If you don't deliver the goods, how can we be ungrateful?" Chen Zhong said, "Your company has been in crisis several times. You always bought the goods from our company first and paid after selling them. You have breached the contract countless times. Put yourself in their shoes. Do you still have a conscience when you come to urge for the goods now?" Chapter 18, Relying on You is Really Wishful Thinking. Li Tsong was speechless and didn't know what to say for a moment. It was he who came to Wanmei to negotiate the extension of the delivery payment. Chen Zhong wanted to stand on the moral high ground and make them realize their shame. Su Ziying listened attentively and was surprised that Chen Zhong, who stayed at home every day, was still aware of the company's situation. Li Tsong hesitated and said, "No matter what, you are the ones who are going to breach the contract. Our boss asked me to urge you to do it." Chen Zhong also knew that this was not something a small manager could decide, but the other party's behavior still made him angry. "Then let your qualified leader come over to talk." Li Tsong glanced at Gong Dagwan and walked out. Gong Dagwan said, "I'll go see Manager Li off." Li Tsong was waiting at the stairs and asked, "Director Gong, when did your company get a new vice president? He's quite impressive." "He?" Gong Dagwan said disdainfully, "His Su Ziying's husband." "What?" Li Tsong asked in surprise. "He is the son-in-law of the Su family." Gong Dagwan said, "Yes, he has such momentum, it's just a fox relying on the power of the tiger." Li Tsong couldn't go back anymore. He was annoyed that he was frightened by a gigolo. He sighed. "We have no choice but to ask the chairman to come forward. I can't understand why Director Gong, who is doing well at Perfect, told us that Perfect is in great trouble now. When the nest is overturned, all eggs will remain intact. Everyone has to think about themselves. Gong Dagwan believes that it is impossible to get through this crisis perfectly. Wife, is what I did just now worthy of praise?" Chen Zhong came closer. "HMPH, given the relationship between me and the pretty girl, I definitely don't have to pay the penalty. You spoke so harshly and offended everyone, and you still want to be praised." Su Ziying gave him a cold look. At this time, her cell phone rang and she picked it up. "Is this Mr. Su?" a middle-aged man asked from the other end of the phone. Su Ziying said, "Didn't Mr. Zhong save my phone number?" "It's really Mr. Su. It's not that I don't have your phone number saved, but your company has grown, and I'm afraid that I'm not equal to you," said Zhang Pengfei, the president of the pretty girl company. Su Ziying felt that there was something fishy in his words, and said unhappily, "Is Mr. Zhong making fun of me? When we are in trouble, you ask someone to rush for the goods. This is not something a brother company would do. How can we talk about feelings in a business world? As far as I know, you can't produce the goods in a short period of time, and you have to pay liquidated damages to several partners. If you compensate them first, how can you have money to compensate me?" Zhang Pengfei said leisurely. Su Ziying never thought that when she was frustrated, the first person to kick her when she was down was actually the person she had helped. She asked in disbelief, "No room for negotiation?" Zhang Pengfei said, "If we can't ship today, I will pay you 10 million yuan in liquidated damages. If you don't pay me either, I will apply for legal enforcement." Su Ziying felt heavy in her heart and couldn't help asking, "Why do you do this?" Zhang Pengfei said calmly, "Then I will let you die with peace of mind. You, Perfect, originally produced cosmetics, but now you want to be a brand. Although the market in Jiangcheng is not small, if a powerful company like yours comes in, our pretty girls will definitely be impacted." Chen Zhong put his head next to Su Ziying's ear and said to the phone, "Perfect is in trouble. You don't help but stab first. You will be punished." "Har ha har ha," Zhang Pengfei laughed. "That Vice President Chen is your live-in son-in-law, right? Hurry up and think about where to live off him. Don't wait until President Su goes bankrupt before thinking about finding a way out." Chen Zhong wanted to say something else. "Shut up." Su Ziying scolded, and then said, "Mr. Zhong, I believe that our cooperation will bring you more benefits than this 10 million in the future, and I promise that the cosmetics will be sold outside the city in the future. When she said this, she had already lowered her attitude, and was still thinking that the other party would remember the friendship of having been rescued in the past. Boss Su, are you begging me? Zhang Pengfei said with a smile, unfortunately, I already have a bigger partner. Do you know the Chen company? Compared to it, Perfect is just an ant. Su Ziying hung up the phone in silence. Chen Cosmetics Company ranks among the top 3 in the country. No wonder Zhang Pengfei would abandon Perfection. Chen Zhong cancelled. Wife, don't worry about it. Pretty girl will suffer the consequences of her trip today. Su Ziying exploded. Didn't you hear that the pretty girl hooked up with the Chen company? That's a giant in the cosmetics industry. If it weren't for your mean mouth, would Zhang Pengfei have made up his mind to break up with me? I was still thinking of counting on you, a loser, what a fantasy. Chen Zhong felt so aggrieved he just wanted to comfort his wife, but ended up getting her into a rage. But it's good to let her vent, after all, she is under a lot of pressure. The family banquet is a time for all the young members of the family to report on the business status of their respective companies. Ranking first will not only attract attention, but also receive special attention from the family. If you rank last, you may lose the right to operate the company. If you ask for help from the family, you will be ridiculed by family members and will lose the qualification to attend the family banquet. Su Ziying had a strong sense of dignity and would naturally not bow her head. She picked up her bag, went to the office, put on makeup in front of the mirror, and changed into a more eye-catching outfit that set off her curvy figure. Chen Zhong was stunned and said, Wife, where are you going? It's time to go back for lunch. Eat, 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 all you do is eat. I'm almost bankrupt, you should consider finding another gigolo. Su Ziying drove out in high heels. Since Chen Zhong didn't have a bicycle, he hid a motorcycle in the factory's carport and followed him out. Su Ziying naturally went to her circle of friends. As a young lady from a large family, she had many people to curry favor with, so borrowing money from her should not be a difficult task. But she was disappointed again. Those who had received her kindness and help all refused to lend her money, or made excuses or avoided her. Some men even tried to take advantage of her. Su Ziying ran into obstacles everywhere and finally couldn't bear it anymore. She squatted in a sparsely populated place and started crying. Chen Zhong was also very heartbroken. He wanted to step forward, but was afraid of shattering her last bit of pride. Su Ziying wiped her tears, stood up again, and looked in the direction that suggested she was heading home. Home is a safe haven for people, where all unhappiness and boredom can be resolved. When Chen returned home, he saw his mother-in-law with wet hair. She was wearing a golden pajamas that showed off her figure very well. It must be said that Su Ziying had a good figure, which was largely due to genetic factors. When Wang Shufen saw him coming back, she walked over angrily, twisted his ear and said, Chen Zhong, do you only remember to eat and not to be beaten? Ouch, mother-in-law, what did I do wrong? Chen Zhong bent down and shouted. I was wondering why you were willing to change into Sun Dasheng's clothes. Turns out you wanted to impersonate him and deliberately sabotage the shareholding plan. You even had someone masked and beat him up. You are not as simple as you seem. Wang Shufen said. Chapter 19 almost steamed. Chen Zhong was very surprised by Wang Shufen's guess, but he still said stubbornly, Mother-in-law, everything must be based on evidence. If I accuse someone without evidence, I will be wronged. Evidence? Do you still dare to say that you are wronged? Su Ziying came out in a pink nightgown, which also made her slender legs pink, and asked, Do you think Wang Chunfeng and a few workers beat someone up? Do you dare not say anything? Do you think you can calm them down? Chen Zhong shuddered. He didn't expect that Wang Chunfeng would betray him. That's right, he was the one who lied to the other party first. Wang Shufen said, Sun Dasheng is such a poor kid. On their way home, his car crashed into a tree again. He got a concussion again and went to the hospital again. Tell me. Did you instruct someone to do this? Chen Zhong was surprised that Sun Dasheng was so miserable, and immediately said, Mother-in-law, I admit that I ordered the beating, but I don't have the ability to cause a car accident. This might even be suspected of murder. Sun Dasheng agreed to invest in Perfect, and he must have bad intentions. I don't want the company my wife worked so hard to create to become a foreign company. Su Ziying said, You beat up someone from the Sun family. Do you know what kind of trouble this will bring? I must teach you a lesson today. Wang Shufan said, this bastard has thick skin and tough flesh. It won't hurt to hit him. I'll teach him a lesson. I just learned a trick from watching TV. It will definitely work. Using new tricks. Chen Zhong didn't know what kind of torture he would face. Come. Wang Shufan brought him into the steam room, and then locked the door with a big lock to prevent him from running out. This was previously used to evaporate the cold air from Su Ziying, but after it was discovered that it didn't work, it was never used again. Although many people like sweat steaming, it is not good for Chen Zhong's health. It is better for him to exercise and sweat. Mother-in-law, what do you want to do? Wang Shufan snorted coldly, I found that you have water in your brain. I will evaporate it for you so that you can become smarter. Chen Zhong said, it seems that this cannot be done, right? And I am also working hard. You have to give me some time. It takes time for an ugly duckling to become a swan. Har har har, Wang Shufan taunted, it's been almost 3 years, and you, the ugly duckling, have turned into an ugly old duck. Su Ziying also said at this time, do you know why you can't turn into a swan? Why? Chen Zhong asked subconsciously. Because the ugly duckling in the fairy tale is actually a swan, and you are originally a duck, how can you become a swan? Su Ziying said sarcastically. Chen Zhong was sure that Su Ziying was watching the adult version of the ugly duckling, otherwise it wouldn't be so realistic. Wang Shufan directly adjusted the temperature to 65 degrees, and then said, you can enjoy yourself in there. Some people would choose this temperature, but it would damage the skin tissue over time, but it had no effect on Chen Zhong. He sat on the chair with his legs crossed. He should have brought his cell phone with him when he came in. He felt a little bored and gradually felt the temperature rising. Knowing that they wanted to see me beg for mercy, I shouted, oh, mother-in-law, wife, I'm so hot, I don't want to stay in there. As soon as Su Ziying heard his light words, she knew it was fake. After living together for 3 years, couldn't she see it? But she didn't say anything. Wang Shufan snorted coldly, you're still pretending with me? I'll turn up the temperature for you. Soon it was twisted to 85 degrees. Su Ziying asked, Mom, isn't this temperature too high? It's okay, just wait for a while and let him out later. I won't really do anything to him. Wang Shufan said. Chen Zhong felt a little hot, but it was no big deal, so he didn't sit on the bench. Instead, he squatted aside and patted the door. Mother-in-law, wife, my mouth is so dry, please let me out. Mom, it's almost time, let him out before anything really happens. Su Ziying said. It's only been such a short time, and you're still thinking about him in your heart. Wang Shufan said, and went to adjust the temperature. Because she twisted it smoothly, she adjusted it to 95 degrees. When she was about to twist it back, she broke it. The mother and daughter stared at each other. Wang Shufan said, it's broken, there's no way to adjust the temperature. Su Ziying hurriedly said, then open the door quickly. Wang Shufan said, I just remembered that I don't know where I put the key to this lock. Su Ziying turned around and looked for pliers to see if she could cut it open. People would definitely be steamed if they were exposed to high temperatures. Grip groove. Chen Zhong felt an immense heat rising up, and when he heard the conversation outside, he no longer cared to blame them. Although he was skilled and had thick skin, he could not withstand such high temperatures and originally wanted to kick the door open. Suddenly he noticed something, jumped open the skylight above, and then carefully moved outside. After taking in some cool air, I felt much more comfortable and waited for a while before going in. Wang Shufan and Su Ziying were almost scared to death. Chen Zhong, don't fall asleep, stay strong, we will rescue you immediately. Especially Su Ziying's voice almost became like crying. She couldn't open the big lock with the small pliers, so she could only knock hard on the iron door. Chen Zhong, please respond. Chen Zhong felt warm in his heart, so he decided not to hide anymore and walked out and said, wife, I knew you still cared about me. Su Ziying was surprised. She was anxious, but he had already escaped. She said coldly, this is called a long-term plan. If you are cooked, how can I teach you a lesson next time? Chen Zhong was speechless. Wang Shufan didn't say anything, she was frightened, she sat on the sofa, sighed and said, the goods will definitely not be shipped, where can I get the money for the 10 million yuan in liquidated damages? This loser ruined the investment, otherwise there would be no need to worry about it. I think we should look for Dasheng. He is in the hospital, you go see him and take care of him for a few days, maybe you can move him. Su Ziying shook her head slightly and said, it's okay to take care of me for a few days. He has already paid 5 million in salary for me. Not only the 10 million in liquidated damages, but also the bank loan, which he can't solve. Huang Shufen thought, if he is not satisfied with the proportion of his investment, then let's satisfy him. Su Ziying sighed and said, Mom, that ratio is already dangerous enough. If it meets his requirements, perfect will be named Chen. Huang Shufen remained silent. Unless there were major decisions to be made, the big family would maintain absolute control over its subsidiaries. We still have a place in the family, that is, we own Perfect Company. If it goes bankrupt, I'm afraid those small branches will bully us. I have worked diligently for several years and got such a reward in return. This is probably God's will. Su Ziying said calmly. Other families have their mother's family to help them, but this loser is the one holding them back. Huang Shufen scolded Chen Zhong, and suddenly remembered something. Didn't Dasheng say that if he married you, he would get a large sum of money from the family? I mentioned it outside today, and the Sun family is still interested in an alliance. If I go find Sun Dasheng's mother, she will definitely agree. Chapter 20 Signing the heir contract. Su Ziying had agreed once after the couple's restaurant, so she could make excuses to delay. But if her mother goes to find Sun Dasheng's mother, then it will be 100% certain. She glanced at Chen Zhong and said, that's the only way. The two still had something to say, and Huang Shufen said, you'll stand there for another night. Then she went into the room. Chen Zhong suddenly felt like he was back at the Chen home. He was treated unfairly and wanted to fight back, but was tied to a tree. After teasing and whipping him, the children went off to play. He was alone again, longing to fit in, yet hating the way they treated him. Was Su Ziying one of those children? Her helplessness and Huang Shufen's ridicule and contempt kept coming to mind. Chen Zhong thought about it for a long time, and slowly realized that she was not those children, she was also a victim. He wanted to fulfill her wish, and a decision came to his mind. Before dawn, Su Ziying had already put on her clothes and prepared to go to the company. Turning on the lights in the living room, Su Ziying wanted to mock Chen Zhong for still being able to fall asleep, but suddenly she was stunned to see his eyes were bloodshot. She was surprised and asked, You didn't sleep all night? Chen Zhong smiled and said, I just woke up and had a dream. I dreamed that I was cooking for you, and then I opened my eyes and saw you. The light was a little dazzling, hee. Maybe it was because Su Ziying was going to agree to marry Sun Dasheng, and looking at his appearance, she felt sympathy for him. She said, he can fall asleep no matter what. He is not a human being. He is no different from a pig. He is good for nothing except eating, drinking, defecating and urinating. Chen Zhong's body had been motionless for a whole night, and after moving twice, he felt a sense of relief. Wife, you are actually wrong. Nothing is useless. It's just that the time has not come for it to be useful. The same is true for pigs. What's the value of a pig? Su Ziying taunted, and continued to compare him to a pig. Chen Zhong smiled with a hint of sadness and said, Of course the value of a pig lies in itself. When it is fat and meaty, it will sell for a good price. If there is a swine fever somewhere, the price will double. The decision that came to my mind last night was to inherit the Chen family's property. The value of his pig has increased countless times, which also means that he has to leave Su Ziying. Su Ziying noticed that he was a little special today. Although he often said something different, which she thought was done deliberately to attract her, there was a hint of sadness in his tone at this moment, and he seemed to be creative. After she made her judgment, she snorted and said, Don't worry, your pig will only be insignificant. Chen Zhong said sincerely, Wife, have you ever thought about living like an ordinary person? Let's. I won't live the life of an ordinary person. Su Ziying said excitedly as if she had been stabbed. My father is a business genius in the family and has always been respected. Since we lost him, my mother and I have been constantly bullied just because we are weak women. I want to make myself strong. I want my mother and I to shine like stars so that others will admire and respect us. Chen Zhong knew that he couldn't convince her, so he said, There are other ways to save Perfect. Don't marry Sun Dasheng. He has bad intentions. I won't agree to a divorce either. If you have the ability, pay back today's penalty. If you can't pay it back and you still don't agree to divorce, then just wait for me to cuckold you. Su Ziying walked out the door. Chen Zhong didn't expect her to be so decisive. He hesitated, picked up the phone and dialed. Second young master, I've been waiting for your call. Have you figured it out? A cunning voice came from Chen Daju. Chen Zhong had a feeling that the old man they encountered had been monitoring them, and suddenly asked, that son Dasheng had 2 consecutive car accidents. Did you have someone do it? Yes, second young master, this guy actually wants to cheat on you. Your uncle can tolerate this, but your aunt can't. Chen Daju said. Didn't I tell you not to attack people around me? Chen Zhong didn't say anything blaming. Chen Daju said, if I don't have someone keep an eye on him, and he succeeds in getting his hands on your wife, and the Su family mocks you for being younger, do you think the Chen family will let your wife go? Chen Zhong realized the seriousness of the problem. The future heir of the Chen family would actually be cuckolded. If this were to spread to the outside world, it would definitely be a big joke and would have a great impact on the family's reputation. It would also cause gossip among other family members. Chen Zhong didn't want to talk about the green hat issue anymore, so he asked, Uncle Chen, you have been the housekeeper of the Chen family for many years, right? Chen Daju recalled, yes, I have been with the master since I was 7 years old. I was a small butler at the age of 18, a big butler at the age of 30, and then 65. It has been many years. Chen Zhong immediately said, you are the general manager and manage a lot of industries. You must have embezzled a lot of money from them, right? Ahem. Chen Daju said, this. Chen Zhong said, don't be nervous. If the water is too clear, there will be no fish. I understand that. What I mean is that I just want to lend you some money. 50 million is not too little for me, and 100 million is not too much for me. It depends on our relationship. He wanted to take Chen Daju down by surprise. Second young master, the master has instructed that you cannot take a penny from the Chen family unless the contract is signed, Chen Daju said solemnly. If the contract is signed, even if you want to sell the Chen family for a penny, it is entirely up to you. Is there a prerequisite, marrying Miss Qi? Chen Zhong asked. Chen Daju replied, this cannot be removed. I hope the second young master will consider the family more. Chen Zhong hesitated for a moment, took a deep breath and said, I agree. But I also have a request. I will leave after the Su family banquet. It's okay, second young master, you should indeed go back later. Chen Daju said. Chen Zhong was surprised and asked, why? Chen Daju said, you need to accumulate some strength before returning to the Chen family, otherwise you will not be able to suppress the opposition from the Chen family. Chen Zhong suddenly felt that being an heir was not so easy. He didn't know why he suddenly felt like he had fallen into a deep pit. Chen Daju asked, second young master, you don't seem to care much about the appearance of the eldest granddaughter of the Qi family, her interests and hobbies, and her shortcomings. Chen Zhong snorted coldly, what's the big deal? In ancient times, emperors married the daughters of important ministers or foreign kings to consolidate their power. They didn't mind even if they were ugly. For the sake of my family, even if the woman I marry looks like a pig, is as stupid as a pig, and gives birth to a child who also looks like a pig, what does it matter? Chen Daju knew he was speaking in anger, so he smiled and said, the granddaughter of the head of the Qi family has a beauty that can make fish sink to the bottom of the water and geese fall to the ground, she has the knowledge of Li Qingzhao, and she has strong skills. Su Ziying is much inferior to her in every aspect. Chen Zhong asked, does this lady from the Qi family accept polygamy? Chen Daju said, second young master, you are joking. I don't think you should accept this. She is so capable, I thought she would be open-minded. Chen Zhong curled his lips. Chen Daju said, every woman cares about matters of principle. Chen Zhong just said something casually and asked, okay, come over here. After I arrived, I signed the contract and went back home feeling like a lost soul. When Wang Shufan got up and saw him looking stupid, she thought he was in low spirits. Since she was in a hurry to go out, she didn't say much. She put on makeup in front of the mirror and picked out a slightly tight brown dress. Although it was not gorgeous, it was mature and attractive. Wang Shufan was very good at dressing up. Suddenly, she was startled and saw Chen Zhong standing behind her. She turned around and cursed, what do you want to do? Chen Zhong said, mother-in-law, where are you going dressed like this? Chapter 21 Second Young Master, this is the money you asked me to collect. What do you mean? Huang Shufan looked at him and said, do I need to report to you where I go? No, no. Chen Zhong hesitated to speak. You're so stupid. Huang Shufan got angry when she saw him like that. Clean my high heels for me. There are more than 20 pairs of high heels on her shoe rack, and each pair costs tens of thousands of yuan, or even hundreds of thousands of yuan. If ordinary women saw these shoes with intact leather and shiny luster, they would probably be extremely envious. But this is nothing for wealthier families. Moreover, Huang Shufan hasn't been to the mall to shop for some time. Mother-in-law, which pair are you wearing today? Chen Zhong asked. Huang Shufan hesitated for a moment and said, let's go with the black 5 cm heels. Chen Zhong took it down, squatted aside and wiped it casually with a cloth. I find that you are becoming less and less serious in doing your work. Have you wiped it clean? Huang Shufan glared. Isn't this very bright? Chen Zhong wondered. She didn't wear her shoes every day, and it had been snowing these days, so the uppers of her shoes were clean. Huang Shufan pointed at the heel of her shoe and asked, what is this? Are you blind? Can't you see the dust? Mother-in-law, you are a little too picky, aren't you? Chen Zhong said unhappily, you showed up and walked a few steps, and you got covered in dust again. Do you know why you are waste? It's because you don't have the attitude to do things. Huang Shufan said, hurry up and wipe it. Chen Zhong grabbed the high heels and tried to wipe them. Wait, I see you are not convinced, so just lick it clean for me. Huang Shufan wanted to tease again. Lick it clean? What do you think of me? Chen Zhong stood up suddenly. What? You still want to fight? Do you think you can do whatever you want now that you're getting a divorce? You've really raised an ungrateful person. Huang Shufan shouted. Chen Zhong endured it again, feeling a little depressed. Why did she think so badly of him? Huang Shufan saw that he seemed to feel ashamed, so she pressed him, are you going to lick it or not? Chen Zhong suddenly asked, mother-in-law, what if I can pay the 10 million yuan in liquidated damages? Can you pay the penalty? If you can pay it, my family will listen to you from now on. Huang Shufan said impatiently, can you pay it? Chen Zhong said, we have to wait for this. After all, if he wants money, Chen Zhong has to get it. Huang Shufan said with disdain, I don't have time to waste with you. If you don't want to lick me, just get out of my house now. Chen Zhong was forced into a desperate situation, and he also fantasized that his mother-in-law would listen to him, but this was simply impossible. Huang Shufan didn't ask for anything more, but took it sarcastically, put it on her feet, twisted her waist and said, wait until I come back, don't let me see you again. Chen Zhong stood there blankly for a while, thinking that once he got the money, he would see her different face. The doorbell rang at the door. When I opened the door, I saw a man in a black suit following Chen Zhong. This man has sharp features, a sharp gaze, and is somewhat cold. He doesn't seem like a talkative person. When he was in the car, Chen Zhong observed him and remained alert to his surroundings at all times, but not deliberately. This means that this person has just taken on the role of a bodyguard. Chen Zhong himself is a top master. Even if he needs a bodyguard, he would not look for a newcomer, which means that this was arranged for him. The man in the suit was holding 2 boxes in his hands and said, Second young master, this is the 10 million in cash you requested, and the other 2 million is your pocket money. Chen Zhong nodded and said with a smile, Uncle Chen thought well. He also gave me something, but it seems that you didn't say it. The man in the suit was stunned and asked, what? It's you. Chen Zhong said. There was a flash of surprise in the eyes of the man in the suit. He knew that the butler had not told the second young master in advance about arranging bodyguards, so how did he guess that? Second young master, how did you know? Chen Zhong smiled but didn't answer. He took out 20 yuan from his inner pocket and said, this is a tip for you. Work hard with me and I won't treat you unfairly in the future. What Chen Zhong said made a lot of sense. Other powerful figures in the family would not let him enter the Chen family's gate easily. He must now accumulate his own strength and should not be stingy with the people around him. The man in the suit was stunned for a moment, then took the money. Chen Zhong took a sip of water and asked, by the way, will I pay your salary or will the Chen family pay it? How much do you make a month? The man in the suit said, the butler said that since I am protecting the heir, the money will naturally be paid by the Chen family. My monthly salary is 5 million. Puff. Chen Zhong burst out laughing. What? 5 million a month? 60 million a year? My God, isn't this bodyguard too high class? He is so tempted to change his career and stop being a gigolo. The man in the suit said, 60 million is just the base salary, plus various bonuses and the like, it's probably about 100 million a year. Cough, cough, cough. Chen Zhong was choked again and said quickly, give me back the 20 yuan. The man in the suit said, second young master, you are not in this industry, so it's not surprising that you are surprised. Don't feel that the money you gave me is an insult to me. Chen Zhong explained, no, I don't think I insulted you, but you don't need money, why did you take the 20 yuan? Don't you know how long it will take me? Chen Zhong put the 20 yuan back into his pocket, thinking that it was impossible to bribe him with money. It seemed that he had to win him over with his true feelings, which would take some time, after all, he was the first person around him. What's your name? How old are you? How many people are there in your family? The man in the suit replied, my name is Wu Di, I'm 27 years old, and I have a younger brother. Chen Zhong saw that he spoke simply and knew that he was not willing to say more. It is normal for such a high-priced bodyguard to have a hidden identity, and the name may even be fake. Since he has passed Shen Daju's review, there should be no problem. I just need to be more careful. Okay, I'll come to you if I need anything. You can buy a house with your own money first. Wu Di said, the housekeeper has already arranged a place to stay. That's great. Chen Zhong breathed a sigh of relief. It was a bit unreasonable for the people around him to protect him, and yet he still asked them to pay for housing. After Wu Di left, he glanced at the villa and felt that the second young master seemed unreliable. The morning passed and Chen Zhong lay on the sofa, resting his legs on the coffee table, eating a banana and watching TV. But in my heart, I was thinking, as a mother-in-law and wife, how happy would they be when they saw him actually take out the money. There were voices of several women talking outside the door, and then the door opened. I didn't expect Dasheng to be so persistent on this point, and his share of shares exceeded mine. When it comes to profit, everyone will think about themselves. I went to look for Dasheng's mother, but was turned away. Before I left, Chen Zhong said he could come up with 10 million yuan in liquidated damages. I almost died of laughter. A few women came in and changed their shoes. When they saw the leisurely Chen Zhong, their anger burst out again. Chapter 22 Shock. How did you get all this money? Chen Zhong, I've never met a person as shameless as you. I told you to get out, but you stayed here shamelessly. Wang Shufen said, get off now, do you think you can lie on that sofa? Su Ziying sneered, you're paying back 10 million yuan in liquidated damages, and you're not willing to pay the pocket money I gave you. Who wouldn't be hypocritical? Wang Shufen asked, it's already 12 o'clock, is lunch ready? Even though Chen Zhong had left the sofa, he still said proudly, I won't cook today, mother-in-law, you go do it. What? Wang Shufen's eyes widened. This is outrageous. You actually dare to ask me to cook? I think you deserve a beating again. Only then did Chen Zhong notice that there was a young woman next to them with a mocking look on her face. The woman's name was Maran. She was a yoga instructor and she often came to teach Su Ziying. Over time, they became close friends. In front of outsiders, Chen Zhong still had to consider his family's face, so he said, I'll go sell vegetables right away. Wang Shufen also cursed, you are like a fool all day long, you don't know what to do. Maran comforted her, Auntie, you don't have to be angry with this loser. If you are sick, no one can take your place. Isn't yoga teaching that? People need to keep a calm mind. When Su Ziying was learning yoga, Wang Shufen often followed her, so Maran was also considered her teacher. Sometimes she would eat and stay overnight at her house. She used to be quite polite to Chen Zhong, but later she lost all respect for him. I want to be peaceful, but I get angry when I see him, Wang Shufen said, holding Maran's hand. Shenzhen, I'm lucky I met you. Otherwise, I would have slipped and no one would have helped me. It would have been so embarrassing. People nowadays are so cold-hearted. Maran smiled and said, that's because Auntie is so beautiful and has a great figure. Women are jealous of you and don't want to help you, and men want to help but are too embarrassed to step forward. Wang Shufen then smiled and said, Shenzhen, you are still good at talking. Chen Zhong rode his motorcycle to the market to buy meat and vegetables, then drove back quickly. It took him an hour and a half to prepare the meal, and he was just about to put some into his own bowl. Huang Shufan took off her muddy pants and threw them on Chen Zhong's head, saying, "Wash this first before eating." "Xiaozhen, I see your socks are wet, let him wash them too." Ma Xiaozhen was still a little restrained in front of Su Ziying and her daughter. It was not nice to take off her socks without being told. But when she went to help Huang Shufan, she also stepped into the water. Her feet felt wet and sticky, and she felt uncomfortable. As soon as Huang Shufan spoke, she took off her short stockings and threw them over. They landed lightly on Chen Zhong, which seemed like a joke and made her laugh. Chen Zhong took it down with one hand. He didn't know if it was the smell of her feet or the water, but it was still a little intoxicating. I quietly put it in a basin of water, added detergent, and scrubbed it with my hands. The three of them were also very hungry at this time, so they shared the bowls and chopsticks and started eating. Ma Xiaozhen ate the chicken leg and said, "You know what, this loser cooks really well. I always want to come to Yingying's house for a meal." Su Ziying glanced over and said calmly, "That's all he is capable of." Huang Shufan sighed, "We didn't reach an agreement with the Sun family, and we can't get a divorce for now. Xiaozhen, if you want, just come and eat often." "Thank you, auntie, but he needs to be educated from time to time. Some people are born with mean bones," Ma Xiaozhen suddenly said. "This loser said he could get 10 million. He is so proud that even a sow can climb a tree. Be careful that he talks nonsense outside and embarrasses the Su family." "You're right. I think we should put a dog leash on him and untie it when we reach the designated point," said Huang Shufan. Chen Zhong rubbed his mother-in-law's pants. Seeing that they were not done humiliating him, he stopped and asked, "What if I didn't lie and took out 10 million? The three women couldn't help but frown when they saw him say that. "If you can take it out, I will agree to one condition." "What if you can't?" Ma Xiaozhen said sarcastically. Chen Zhong said, "I will also agree to one condition of yours." Ma Xiaozhen said, "Yingying, auntie, he can't get paid for his work, how about I use him for a few days?" "It doesn't matter," Su Ziying added, "just don't take too long." Ma Xiaozhen was surprised and said, "Yingying, you seem to care about him a little." Chen Zhong was immediately moved and said, "Wife." Su Ziying explained without any emotion, "He still has to do their housework at home. Now that he is more comfortable with it, it seems that we need to find someone else to do their housework. Once he is more skilled, he can take over." Chen Zhong was stabbed hard and said, "Wife, if I take out 10 million. Su Ziying didn't believe it at all, and snorted, "I will also agree to one condition of yours." Huang Shufan followed up, "I've told you before, if you can come up with it, I'll listen to you in the future." Chen Zhong wiped his hands on his unwashed socks, stood up, walked into a room, and carried out 2 large boxes. The three women still looked as if they were waiting to see what tricks you were playing. But when the box was opened, the square, bright red $100 bills appeared in front of the eyes. They were shocked and became demented. Ma Xiaozhen was the only one who had never had 10 million. Huang Shufan and Su Ziying had had it, but they had never seen so much money. "Is this counterfeit money? This is against the law." Huang Shufan knelt on the ground and picked up the stacks one by one to check. She ran her fingers across the thick banknotes and listened to the sound. None of them were fake. Su Ziying didn't doubt it, but roughly calculated it, and it was indeed 10 million. "Chen Zhong, how did you get this money? This person worked at the bottom of society and entered a wealthy family by chance. He could not do anything and had no industry. How could she not be suspicious and feel incredible when so much money came out of nowhere?" Chen Zhong didn't want to say that it was because his identity was different from before. Seeing their mouths open, he couldn't help but straighten his chest and said, "Didn't you ask me why the owner of the Grand Metropole Hotel admired me? I said it was because I saved a drowning child and I ran into their parents. They wanted to repay them for saving their life, so I borrowed 10 million from them. I fantasized that you were the son of the patriarch of a big family, but it seems that I was just daydreaming." Su Ziying said. When Huang Shufan heard that it was a loan, she poked Chen Zhong's head with her finger and scolded him, "I see there's water in your house. Would it be stupid to save someone without asking for anything in return? You should pay us back the money when the time comes, but don't expect us to pay you back a dime." Chen Zhong was very aware of his mother-in-law's power and vanity, so he didn't care. He said, "After all, I paid the money. You promised me a condition. Can you comply with it now?" Chapter 23 Fulfilling the Conditions, First Kiss with My Wife. Tell me your conditions. Ma Xiaojun retracted the fire in her eyes. The reason why she came to Su Ziying's house to teach yoga was, on the one hand, because the other party offered a high price, and secondly, she wanted to use her connections to get in touch with young people from big families, so that she could rise from a humble background to a superstar. Unfortunately, Su Ziying doesn't seem to play with the young people from the big family, but instead devotes herself to work. When this loser took out 10 million, she was really shocked. However, when she found out that it was borrowed, the inexplicable feelings she had for him disappeared. Chen Zhong said leisurely, "Just now I seemed to hear someone say, if I get 10 million, sows can climb trees. How about you climb a tree for me and learn a few pig calls?" You? Ma Xiaojun was angry. He actually treated her like a pig. Isn't this humiliating her? That's too much, Su Ziying frowned and said, "Don't go even further once you gain power." Chen Zhong shrugged and said, "This seems to be less than 1/10 of what I have to endure at home. Women are indeed different from men. Just pretend I didn't say this." Su Ziying stared at him, knowing that he was retreating in order to advance. If she didn't do as he said, she would fall into his trap. Ma Xiaojun could refuse, but she was afraid of being looked down upon, so she took a breath and said, "Ying, it's okay, I will keep my word." The villa has a front yard and a backyard, each with a tree. In order to avoid being laughed at, they went to the backyard. Under the gaze, Ma Xiaojun rubbed her hands, jumped on the spot and clamped the tree. Chen Zhong also praised, "You are indeed a yoga practitioner. You hold the tree trunk firmly." Ma Xiaojun wanted to squeeze him to death. She ignored him and continued to climb up. When she reached a certain position, she made a hee-hee sound like a pig. "Har har har, Xiaojun, you are so adorable. The cries of this little sow are so lifelike." Chen Zhong laughed. Su Ziying and Huang Shufan couldn't help laughing. It was the first time they saw a woman imitating the sound of a sow in a tree. Ma Xiaojun was clinging to the tree. She was too embarrassed to come down after doing such an anticlimactic thing. Just as she was about to slide down, she was caught on the bark. Her pants were torn and she fell headfirst. "R!" Su Ziying and Huang Shufan exclaimed. At this time, women are at a loss and can only scream. Chen Zhong took a quick step forward and hugged Ma Xiaojun, almost falling to the ground. Ma Xiaojun's face was still red. Instead of showing any gratitude, she glared at him fiercely. Chen Zhong then realized that he had touched the wrong place. He coughed and said, "Mother-in-law, you said you would listen to me in the future." "What did I say?" Wang Shufan asked. Chen Zhong didn't dare to repeat himself, so he said, "I took out 10 million, so I can be considered a hero. Can you wash my clothes for a week?" Wang Shufan still wanted to refuse, but she couldn't be too shameless, so she said, "Just wash it." At the same time, she comforted herself that this was experiencing life. Su Ziying is the only one left, and the other women all want to know what conditions Chen Zhong wants. Chen Zhong seemed to have a kind of desire in his eyes, and said, "Wife, let's go to the room." Wang Shufan quickly grabbed Su Ziying and asked, "What do you want to do?" "Oh, mother-in-law, I have something to tell Ying," Chen Zhong said. Wang Shufan listened to his perfunctory silence and clearly didn't believe him. "If you have anything to say, just say it here." Chen Zhong said, "This is a conversation between husband and wife. Mother-in-law, it's not good for you to hear it, right? I have already got 10 million. I understand if you say you don't want to return it, but if you still want to stop me, I can only." Wang Shufan was angry. She didn't expect that this guy contained a threat in his words. If he didn't let them in, he wouldn't let them use the 10 million. She was really caught off guard, so she pulled Su Ziying aside and said, "I think this loser is up to no good. If he wants to do something bad, just scream." Ma Xiaojun also said, "Yes, my mother-in-law and I will rush over and beat him up." Su Ziying was originally worried about falling into the tiger's mouth, but now she was not so scared with the backup. Wang Shufan added, "If their conditions are not too extreme, then compromise a little. After all, it is not easy to get 10 million at this time." Su Ziying nodded to show that she understood, and followed Chen Zhong, who seemed to have a cunning smile on his face, into the room. Boom! Wang Shufan and Ma Xiaojun were shocked because the door was locked after they entered. Su Ziying's eyes narrowed and she asked, "What do you want to do?" Chen Zhong's breathing became heavier and he said, "Su Ziying, don't you know what I am going to do? We are in the same room, but we have never been husband and wife. HMPH, let alone living in the same room, even if we're in the same bed, if there's no love between us, I won't have anything to do with you. Su Ziying wanted to push him away. Chen Zhong grabbed her hands and pressed them against the wall. He stared at her fair skin and star-like eyes and said, feelings are cultivated, but you turned a blind eye to me. Su Ziying wanted to struggle free, but couldn't. She realized that he worked at the bottom and had done all kinds of hard labor, so her support was of no use at all. She said in a panic, do you think you can achieve your goal by using this method? At most, it can vent your anger for a while, but it will only make me hate you more. Chen Zhong recovered from his impulse. He had persisted for more than 2 years because he respected her and himself. Why was it that once he had money, it seemed as if the demon in his heart was unleashed? He still felt a little sad and said, why don't you give me a chance? Seeing that he was emotionally unstable, Su Ziying pretended to comfort him and said, your kind act of saving the child still touched me. It proves that you have good qualities. I am willing to give you a chance. Chen Zhong was happy and asked, can I kiss you? Su Ziying was silent. She wanted to tell him not to push her too far, but she was afraid that he would not let her go. So she said as if she was ready to sacrifice her life at any time, okay, start now. Chen Zhong felt awkward. What do you mean by, let's get started? Isn't this kiss something between two people? He was a little upset that it was so forced. He still pressed against her. What was it like? Anyone who kisses for the first time can feel it, but he couldn't find the words to describe it. This was also Su Ziying's first time. She was born with a cold body and often could not feel the heat in her body. But at this moment, she felt a heat coming, making her panic and confused. There was a knock on the door, which woke her up and made her push Chen Zhong away. Huang Shufen didn't know what was going on inside, so she asked anxiously, Chen Zhong, have you finished talking about your matter? Chen Zhong said solemnly, I will never forget this moment today. Su Ziying said nothing and walked out with her head down. Huang Shufen asked with concern, daughter, what did you do in there? You didn't do that, did you? She felt very sad just thinking about losing her daughter to this 10 million yuan. Chapter 24 You are so cruel to lend me to another woman. Ma Xiaojun was also particularly gossipy and asked, you were in there for only 5 minutes, right? This loser was done so quickly. Losers are losers. Su Ziying was speechless. What are you thinking? We didn't do anything. He just asked me if I liked him. The two women nodded and agreed that it was unlikely that they would do that. Su Ziying didn't want them to say anything irrelevant, so she said, with this 10 million, I will return it to the pretty girl company now. Chen Zhong was still secretly complaining that the two women actually underestimated his ability. It was a pity that he couldn't try, otherwise they would be shocked to death. Although he had never tried it, he had practiced the secret technique taught by the old man, which mainly focused on training the vulnerable parts of the human body to reduce the weaknesses and protect the whole body when fighting with others. This kind of martial arts is much more powerful than the golden bell cover and iron cloth shirt. Chen Zhong said at this time, wife, don't be in a hurry to give them the money, leave them alone first. I don't have your petty thoughts, Su Ziying said with a double meaning, I don't want to have anything to do with the pretty girl anymore, so I'll just give it to her and that's it. Chen Zhong shook his head and said, I don't think Zhang Pengfei is that simple. He just wants the 10 million. After the fire, there will be a penalty for breach of contract. You mean, it was Zhang Pengfei who ordered the arson? Su Ziying asked with her eyes wide open. Chen Zhong said, I just feel that it is a coincidence. Any competitor, including the hostile forces in the family, could be a possibility. It is better to let them show their ugly faces for a while. It is easy to dodge an open spear but difficult to guard against an arrow from the dark. Su Ziying hesitated for a moment and said, okay, let's do this. Huang Shufen was surprised that her daughter would listen to this loser's advice, but what he said made sense. Su Ziying kissed Chen Zhong, and she didn't want to face him, so she said, I'm going to the company. Chen Zhong said quickly, I'll go too. It's a good opportunity to train us. Before he finished speaking, Su Ziying turned and said, Xiaojun, didn't you say you wanted to borrow Chen Zhong for a few days? He's yours for these few days. Wife, you are so cruel to lend me to another woman. Chen Zhong understood that she didn't want to see him. Su Ziying said coldly, if you don't listen, the opportunity will be void. Although Ma Xiaojun didn't know what they were talking about, she was still happy and asked, Ying, can I borrow your car for a while? Just let Chen Chong drive it. Ma Xiaojun hurried out immediately, and because her shoes and socks were still wet, she put on Su Ziying's shoes. Chen Zhong drove out of the garage and heard the instructions to go to the 5th hospital. The patients who go to the 5th hospital are mainly the elderly, and the prices here are relatively cheap. After arriving there, Chen Zhong didn't understand and said, "What is your purpose? What use can I have? I hope you can respect me a little, otherwise I won't cooperate with you." Ma Xiaojun sneered and said, "Don't worry, I'm not letting you suffer any loss. On the contrary, I'm letting you take advantage of me. You should be excited." Chen Zhong was surprised and asked, "What do you mean by taking advantage? Pretending to be my boyfriend?" Ma Xiaojun grabbed his arm around her waist and said, "Have you ever hugged Su Ziying like this?" Chen Zhong was indeed tempted, but in order to maintain his image, he reluctantly pulled it out and said with a straight face, "I don't know what you are up to, but I don't think I'm taking advantage of you by hugging me as your boyfriend." "You?" Ma Xiaojun rarely gets angry, but today she was irritated by this gigolo. She is very beautiful and has a great figure. Countless men wanted to talk to her, but she always ignored them. Not to mention any physical contact with her, the man remained unmoved. "I guess he is really an incompetent waste." Ma Xiaojun had to soften her tone and said, "My mother is in the hospital. She has always wanted me to get married soon. I have to have a boyfriend first." Chen Zhong saw that she was being filial, so he relaxed his vigilance against her possible trickery and asked, "You are so beautiful, there are many people pursuing you, there is no shortage of rich bachelors, why do you only choose me? Don't you know I am very busy?" Ma Xiaojun said, "I have no feelings for those men. Most of them have bad intentions. If they come to you, you won't dare to do anything wrong, so." Chen Zhong was very unhappy when he heard this and said, "Are you mocking me for not having the courage to cheat?" He immediately put his arm around her waist and said, "Let's go see your mother." Ma Xiaojun tensed up. She didn't expect that this guy would do intimate actions out of provocation, so that her mother would not suspect their relationship. In a ward in the inpatient department. "Mom, I'm here. Are you feeling better today?" Ma Xiaojun asked. There was a white-haired woman at the head of the bed, who smiled and said, "I'm feeling better now. You still have work to do, so you don't have to come to see me every day." Ma Xiaojun turned her head to glance at Chen Zhong, motioning him to come over quickly, and then turned back and said, "Aren't you always thinking about my marriage? And you said I never fell in love, didn't I bring my boyfriend here?" The white-haired woman then noticed Chen Zhong and asked, "Are you Xiaojun's boyfriend? I'm sorry to embarrass you. I gave birth to her late, and she's already an old woman." Chen Zhong smiled and said, "Aunt, I see that you just have more white hair, but you look very young. Times are changing, and many people are marrying and having children later. This can be considered as responding to the country's call. You are making a contribution. For example, my father is already 70 years old this year." Ma Xiaojun thought Chen Zhong was just responding, but she didn't expect him to say so much. His appearance was very different from that of Vino at Su Ziying's house. She wanted to stop him from talking, but there seemed to be nothing wrong with what he said, and it made her mother laugh. Besides, his father was actually 70 years old. The white-haired woman smiled and said, "Young man, what's your name? What do you do for a living?" Chen Zhong said, "My name is Chen Zhong, and I'm a carpenter." Ma Xiaojun immediately pinched his back secretly, saying that the purpose of letting him drive a luxury car was to make him talk about the boss or something. This guy is talking about a low-level job again. Is he doing that on purpose? Carpentry. The white-haired woman nodded and said, "Carpentry is good, it is also a technical job, and you can earn a lot of money. As long as you work hard enough, you can create a good future. Xiaojun, I think your boyfriend is much more reliable than those bosses you usually talk about." Chen Zhong, "My Xiaojun may say something that makes people unhappy, but she has a kind heart. You should give in to her more." Ma Xiaojun was stunned. She was afraid that she would not be able to pass her mother's test, but she didn't expect that a carpenter could handle her. "Don't worry, Mom. Your daughter is so beautiful, I am willing to be bullied by her," Chen Zhong said as he put his arms around Ma Xiaojun's shoulders and pinched her flesh with 2 fingers. Ma Xiaojun took a deep breath and forced a smile. This hypocritical guy was actually seeking revenge for the twisting he had just done. Suddenly, a man walked in from the door and shouted, "How dare you, a small carpenter, hug Xiaojun?" Chapter 25 is so fascinating, the beating posture is so handsome. The man at the door was wearing branded casual clothes and was tall and strong. He rushed over and was about to attack. Ma Shezhen's mother, Wang Xiumin, said, "Who are you? Don't do it." Ma Shezhen also hurriedly said, "Mr. Li, I said I have no feelings for you, so you should stop pestering me." Mr. Li seemed very unacceptable and said, "Shezhen, I divorced my husband for you and spent money to find many people to sign up for your yoga class. You still have no feelings for me. Can't men impress women by giving them money?" Chen Zhong smiled. The money offensive was indeed lethal to some women, but it didn't work on every woman. Ma Shezhen often came to his house, and he knew what she was thinking. He could only say that she had higher standards and wanted to marry into a big family. This so-called Mr. Li is not good enough. Ma Shezhen even pretended to be serious and said, "Boss Li, please don't humiliate me. What I pursue is love, not money." Wang Xiumin was very pleased and said, "Boss, thank you for liking my daughter, but love is a matter between two people, and a forced relationship is not sweet." Mr. Li said, "Since I was born, my family has always satisfied my requests. The same is true for me outside. No one has ever dared to refuse me, not even you." There were quite a few people watching in the corridor. A doctor came over and reminded, "Please don't make loud noises. If there is any conflict, please solve it outside." Ma Shezhen felt very sorry. She had used her connections to get this separate ward, and it would be bad if she was kicked out because of this. Chen Zhong said at this time, "Boss Li, why don't we go outside and talk?" Mr. Li showed a fierce look and said, "Okay, I was just thinking about asking you how you managed to catch up with Shezhen." Wang Xiumin was worried that the two of them would fight. Just as she was about to speak, the two of them had already walked out quickly. She quickly said, "You should stop them and don't let them get hurt. Mr. Li must have grown up in a privileged family. You can't afford to offend Chen Zhong." Ma Shezhen was surprised. Although her mother was kind, she was too concerned. This made her even more uneasy, fearing that Chen Zhong would be her fake boyfriend for a long time. "I quickly chased after him and found the two of them standing in the underground parking lot." Mr. Li said, "If you leave Ma Shezhen, I will give you 100,000 yuan. Is this equivalent to your salary for 2 years? Otherwise, I will be rude to you." Chen Zhong curled his lips and said, "Who are you looking down on? I wonder how much Mr. Li can make in a month." Mr. Li puffed out his chest and said, "It's still possible to make 10,000 yuan a month." "Har har," Chen Zhong said sarcastically, "although the work we carpenters do may not seem impressive, the more we work, the more we earn. If we work hard, it won't be a problem to earn 30,000 yuan a month. Why are you showing off to me? You just come from a better family, otherwise you'd be a waste. Mr. Li is actually just an office worker. People call him Mr. Outside, but it's just a respectful title, but he takes it seriously." He was also surprised and said, "How is it possible? How can a carpenter make so much money? How dare you humiliate me? I will beat you to death, you migrant worker." Seeing this, Ma Shezhen quickly shouted, "Mr. Li, don't do it." It is said that Mr. Li has practiced taekwondo since he was a child. He has even been seen demonstrating it by kicking a board in half, and people think he is very powerful. Chen Zhong, although I admire you for not being tempted by 100,000 yuan, you can't be so mean, right?" Ma Shezhen was sure that he was going to be beaten. Suddenly, Chen Zhong dodged Mr. Li's sharp kick and punched him in the stomach. The pose at that moment simply mesmerized her, so handsome. Is this still the same loser who allowed himself to be scolded and beaten? It feels like he has been reborn. Oh. Mr. Li fell heavily to the ground. Chen Zhong kicked him and said, "Don't look down on us migrant workers. We just don't like to get angry. Your parents spoil you at home, but I'm not your parents. I don't have that kind of patience." Wow. Mr. Li burst into tears, "Shezhen, please don't leave me, please don't leave me." Ma Shezhen looked at Chen Zhong with different eyes again, and went back to the ward with him. Wang Xiumin also asked with concern, "Chen Zhong, did Mr. Li make things difficult for you? Did he not hit you? If he wants to bully you, you must not confront him. Remember to report it to the police." Chen Zhong smiled and said, "I know, Mom, don't worry. I just told him that Shezhen and I are a perfect match, and he couldn't bear to separate us. After all, there are still many good people in this world who can help others achieve their goals." Wang Xiumin nodded and suddenly asked, What did you call me just now? Ma Xiaojun also realized that he had actually called out to her just now, but before she could react, she was interrupted by Mr. Li. She felt a little embarrassed and annoyed. This guy was being too shameless. If her mother thought he was a frivolous person, all her efforts would be wasted. Chen Zhong said, "I'm sorry, I've been without a mother since I was a child. She died of heavy bleeding when she gave birth to me, so my family thought I was an unlucky person. I grew up in a place where I was looked down upon. I saw that you were very kind, so I thought my mother should be the same, so I couldn't help but call you mom. Please don't blame me." So that's how it is. Ma Xiaojun raised her head. Wen Xiumin grabbed Chen Zhong's hand and said, "It's okay. You are such a poor child. You can call me mom from now on." Chen Zhong held her hand, then took her pulse, frowned, and asked, "Mom, your illness?" Ma Xiaojun was surprised and asked, "You can also take a pulse? This guy can't be pretending, right? Why does he suddenly seem like he's omnipotent?" Wen Xiumin was also slightly surprised and said, "I have been busy all my life, and I fell from a height while cleaning windows at home. The doctor said that my internal organs were shattered and I don't have many months to live." "Mom, you will get better," Ma Xiaojun said with red eyes. Chen Zhong also felt that her breath was very unstable, and said thoughtfully, "Although the internal organs are broken and difficult to repair, there is a way. Mom, you'd better keep a good mood. I know a little about medicine and will make sure you get better." Okay. Wen Xiumin also felt that this future son-in-law had good words and was well-intentioned, so she agreed without holding out any hope. Coming out of the ward, Ma Xiaojun thanked him. "Chen Zhong, thank you very much for your help today. Your acting is very good and makes my mother very happy. Here is 10,000 yuan as a thank you fee. If you don't mind, I'll treat you to a meal." Chen Zhong took the money and raised his eyebrows and said, "What kind of acting skills are these? I really thought of you as my girlfriend. Otherwise, how could it be real?" He put his arm around her shoulders and asked, "Xiaojun, where are we going to eat?" Ma Xiaojun threw his hand away and said, "I thought you were an honest person, but I didn't expect you to be exposed so quickly. Aren't you afraid that I will tell Su Ziying?" Chapter 26. I swear to Deng that I would never do anything inappropriate to her. Chen Zhong said, "If you sue, I'm afraid I won't be able to come to the hospital anymore." Ma Xiaojun retracted her threat and asked, "Is it true that you said you could save my mother?" "Of course it's true. If you don't believe it, just look at my actions," Chen Zhong said calmly. Ma Xiaojun had hope for him and felt an inexplicable familiarity with him. She said, "Let's go to the hot pot restaurant next door. It's pretty good." She was also worried that although Chen Zhong was a gigolo in the Su family, his contacts were of high status, and she was afraid of being looked down upon. "My mother's medical treatment and hospitalization expenses have already cost a lot of money, and this guy actually took 10,000 yuan. Chen Jinzhong nodded and said, "Small hot pot. It's very good. I haven't eaten it for a long time. I'll get 2 bottles of Red Star Erguatu. It's very enjoyable." The two of them sat in the hot pot restaurant. Since it was covered by a greenhouse, it was still a bit cold even though there were many people. After selecting the vegetables, wait for the pot to boil and then put them in. As I ate and drank, I soon felt warm. This made Ma Xiaojun feel very strange, and she opened her heart and said, "Chen Zhong, you don't know that I am sarcastic to others and rude to you. In fact, I am an inferior person." Chen Zhong clinked glasses with her and said with a smile, "Why do you feel inferior? You have such a good figure and you are so beautiful." Ma Xiaojun said, "My parents gave birth to me relatively late, and they worked hard day and night, so they aged very quickly. I didn't dare ask them to pick me up when I went to school. When they met me, I would say they were my grandparents, which made my parents very sad. I was also very skinny and pale at the time, and my classmates laughed at me, which made me feel ashamed. You said your father is already 70 years old, and your mother is. Is that true?" "It's true." Chen nodded. Ma Xiaojun said, "So I feel like we are the same kind. I wonder if you ever disliked your father when you were a child." Chen Zhong recalled for a long time before saying, "No, I wanted to be close to him, but he disliked me." "I'm sorry." Ma Xiaojun had forgotten that he was considered an unlucky person by his family. The two talked for a while, and Ma Xiaojun got drunk. After asking for her address, he sent her back. I got out of the car, carried her up and opened the door. I wanted to put her on top of the bed, but she held her neck tightly and wouldn't let go. It was difficult to get it down. Looking at her curvy figure, I have to say that God favors those who work hard. How can you develop a devilish body if you don't have inferiority complex and the desire to work hard? Chen Zhong reached into his inner pocket, took out 200,000 yuan and placed it on the head of her bed. I wanted to explore her proud part with my hand, but I took it back. I couldn't let my wife down. After arriving home, Su Ziying, as a friend, didn't dare to ask where he had been. Wang Shufan didn't care. What did Ma Shezhen do with you? Chen Zhong didn't dare to lie, and said, Ma Shezhen's mother is in the hospital, and her condition is quite critical. Her mother wants her to get married, so she wants me to pretend to be her boyfriend, but others won't believe me. Wang Shufan understood and said, Ma Shezhen is a good person, you can't take advantage of her, people like you are mean and evil. Chen Zhong quickly pointed his finger upwards and said, I swear to Deng, I won't dare to do anything inappropriate to her. When sleeping at night, Chen Zhong was lying on the floor and asked, Wife, is there anything special today? Su Ziying didn't want to pay attention to him, but he finally got 10 million yuan. She said, You have successfully made the people in our company panic. I don't think this is a good sign. Chen Zhong smiled and said, The great waves will wash away the sands, and those who are not firm in their consciousness will eventually be eliminated. This is also an opportunity for a reshuffle. I hope I haven't lost the last chance to play cards on stage. Su Ziying ignored him. The next morning, Su Ziying arrived at the company late and something went wrong. Assistant Dao Na called and said that the president of the pretty girl had brought people to the company. Su Ziying quickly called and asked, Zhang Pengfei, what are you doing in my company? Please leave. Zhang Pengfei said leisurely, Mr. Su, haven't you prepared the penalty yet? I'm planning to move your company's things away in exchange for money. You're pushing me too far. Su Ziying said angrily. Zhang Pengfei laughed and said, Since I have offended someone, I must offend him to death, otherwise he will come back to haunt me. If I can't give it to you in the last morning, I will spread the news of Perfect's breach of trust throughout the industry. Su Ziying wanted to say something, but the other party had already hung up the phone and said, Chen Zhong, pick up the box and pay me back. Chen Zhong knew that he couldn't talk about entrustment anymore, so he took out the box and got into the car, saying, Zhang Pengfei actually dared to bring people to the company. If he dares to do anything, I will definitely fight to the death. Su Ziying drove very fast, and she did not forget to scold him, If you want to be a barbarian, go to the deep mountains and old forests. Fighting desperately is something that only incompetent people would do. My wife is right. Chen Zhong quickly changed his words. When I arrived at the lobby, I saw a few people gathered together. They were all perfect employees, and among them was a pretty female staff member. Fill in your information, what you do and how many years you have worked. Our pretty girl's salary is guaranteed to be a perfect 20% higher. Su Ziying's face darkened. These employees actually resigned for a pretty girl, and they did such a thing in their own company. Chen Zhong walked over, pushed through the crowd, and overturned the table. He said sternly, If you guys want to get out, you can go outside and sign up. When several people who were about to resign saw that it was President Su, they hurriedly lowered their heads. After all, he had been very nice to them, and it was too embarrassing for him to do such a thing at this time. The pretty girl's staff was not happy and asked, Why did you overturn our table and stop the registration? Su Ziying did not blame Chen Zhong for his behavior. On the contrary, his actions made her feel relieved. Sometimes you have to take action. She said coldly, Because this is the perfect company, what you did here is an infringement of other people's interests, I can report it to the police. The staff member didn't dare to say anything else. Instead, he waved his hand and said, Let's go outside and fill in the information. We are about to go bankrupt. What's the point of talking about benefits? It's ridiculous. Su Ziying didn't bother with the little guy, but she also let out a sigh of relief and walked upstairs. The staff in the office area were listless and few were working. Assistant Dao Na walked over quickly and said, President, that Zhang Pengfei brought people to the company and offered a salary that was 20% higher than ours. He poached some people, and those who hadn't left felt unstable because of the rumor that the company was going to go bankrupt. Hello everyone, I believe most people are familiar with me. I am the president of the Pretty Girl Company and have been cooperating with Perfect. The strength of a company lies in its ability to handle crises. Obviously, Perfect did not solve it very well. It cannot pay loans, liquidated damages, and even wages. What are you looking for here? Zhang Pengfei said in the middle of the area. Chapter 27: The usual trick of using money to slap someone in the face. Of course, Su Ziying couldn't just watch her employees being led to the other side, otherwise, how could she run the business without anyone? Walking over, she said coldly, "Boss Zhang, you are really despicable. I'm wondering why I didn't force you to death back then." Har har, Zhang Pengfei laughed. "Boss Su, only weak people would say such things as you do. Winners are kings and losers are bandits. Can't you see that? My treatment is better than perfect, why should I hang myself here?" A perfect employee took the opportunity to say, "A tree that doesn't move will die, but a person who moves will live. I'm just an employee. I'll definitely choose the place that offers better conditions. I'm willing to join the pretty girl." Zhang Pengfei clapped his hands and said, "Welcome new colleagues to join us, it will be more exciting with you, pretty girl." Another perfect employee said, "A wise bird chooses a tree to inhabit, a wise minister chooses a master to serve. If a pretty girl can become successful, it's because of a wise leader. I am willing to throw myself into its arms." Har har har, great, a scholar has come, welcome. Zhang Pengfei laughed. Then a perfect employee said, "Jingmai has cooperated with the giant Xiao Jiren. If she doesn't become the leader of Jiancheng in the future, I will resign. Perfect is going to close down. I have a wife and kids to support, so I'm quitting my job." At once, more than a dozen perfect employees came behind Zhang Pengfei. This was undoubtedly a slap in the face. Su Ziying blushed but was speechless. Zhang Pengfei said very proudly, "Boss Su, how is it? I remember you told me about corporate culture. Let me tell you, what can win people's hearts? Only those who have milk are the mother. In fact, I have a way to help you get through the crisis." Those perfect employees felt ashamed after hearing such disrespectful words. Although Su Ziying didn't believe he had any good intentions, she still wanted to see what tricks he was going to play, so she asked, "What? My company doesn't have a production factory. Why don't you merge with me and serve me for a few more nights? I will help you pay back the rest of the money." Zhang Pengfei did not hide his intentions at all. Su Ziying laughed, and that moment made him even more infatuated. He only heard her say, "Chen Zhong, I find more and more that sometimes using your method is more powerful." Chen Zhong was resentful. She had just asked him to go back to the deep mountains and old forests, but she summoned him so soon. He pounded his chest with both hands, jumped over like Tarzan, and knocked Zhang Pengfei down with one punch. "Damn it, you gigolo, you dare to hit me." Zhang Pengfei was thinking about what Su Ziying meant. It turned out that she was hinting at hitting him. "You are special, what is there that you are afraid of?" Chen Zhong rode on him and slapped him several times. I am the president of Pretty Girl, I have a status. Who are you? How can you hit me?" Zhang Pengfei shouted very stupidly. Chen Zhong laughed and said, "You broke into our perfect company privately and asked our staff to come to your company, causing us heavy losses. I am defending my own interests. Besides, you dare to have thoughts about my wife. If I don't beat you, am I still a man? I'm here to ask for liquidated damages. They joined my company voluntarily, and you got angry because you couldn't pay. Let's settle these two things together." Zhang Pengfei said. Seeing the blood on his face, Su Ziying said, "Open the box you brought and let them see it." Chen Zhong entered a pair of passwords and pulled it hard, and neatly stacked $100 bills were placed in the box. Everyone felt their eyes dazzled, they had never seen so much money before. Chen Zhong said, "There are 10 million in this card. Do you really think that Miss Su has no money? As her husband, I will tell you that there are still hundreds of millions of dollars in her card." The employees looked at each other, obviously not believing what he said. Chen Zhong looked around at everyone and said, "Are you suspicious? Why didn't you take out the money earlier? That is to see how many people are loyal to the company during the difficult period. Obviously some people can't stand the test. Don't you know that Pretty Girl hired you at a high price just to ruin perfection? Don't you know that Pretty Girl has a very strict last place elimination system? 10 people will be eliminated at a time. Go and see how many of them are veterans at Pretty Girl." The employees who had left looked at each other and realized that they had been used. They couldn't help but regret leaving. Chen Zhong continued, For those who have not left perfect company, I declare that their future salary will be twice as much as before. I hope everyone will work hard. Su Ziying was quite satisfied with what Chen Zhong said, otherwise she would only admit that there was a shortage of funds, but he was exaggerating. Jin Zi asked her to borrow 500,000 yuan, but she couldn't even pay it out. There was only more than 300,000 yuan in her account. Where did she get hundreds of millions of yuan? Moreover, he even offered to pay her double the salary, which was like asking for her life. She was about to get angry when the employees burst into excitement. Double the salary, this is a very high salary in Jiangcheng. You won't go wrong if you follow President Su. I will always follow your footsteps. Long life President Su. Those who left were brainless. They didn't even think about what President Su was like. How could he be without money? Those who had left then realized that behind Su Ziying was the Su family, one of the top 10 families in Jiangcheng, and they regretted it deeply. One person quickly said, "Boss Su, I've thought about it and decided to face the difficulties together with Perfect. I'm back." Su Ziying was very relieved that the employees had regained their spirits. It must be very tiring to carry the company forward alone, and someone was willing to come back, so she wanted to give him a chance. I'll beat him. Chen Zhong came out and kicked the person who wanted to come back away. The employee fell to the side and shouted, "Why did you hit someone? I hate two-faced people the most. Do you think the company is a vegetable market? You can come and go as you please." Chen Zhong said. The employee said, "Do you have the final say in this company? You are just a son-in-law who married into the Su family." Seeing Su Ziying's hesitation, Chen Zhong said, "Wife, letting him come back is unfair to those of us who didn't abandon him. You keep talking about corporate culture, but he doesn't follow it. Will he not leave next time when difficulties arise?" Accepting other companies without scruples at Perfect is obviously something that only shameless people can do. Su Ziying's eyes immediately became firm. Anyone who leaves the company today will never be hired by Perfect World. The employee was so ashamed that he couldn't even raise his head. He could only say harshly, "Okay, just watch how I do it on the pretty girl." Chen Zhong sarcastically asked, "Who are you? Do you think we would be interested in you?" The employee. Although Zhang Pengfei received liquidated damages and some employees of Perfect Company, he was beaten and humiliated. He said, "I will not let this go." Chapter 28. It's wrong to be too beautiful, people are afraid to pursue you.